Good morning. I'll call the Kaneohe County Board of Commissioners meeting to order. We'll stand and recite the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome, everybody. I hope you had your Wheaties this morning because we have a pretty long agenda in front of us, and you might get a little faint if it gets into the early afternoon here. First item on the agenda, you received this in your packet, and there are a number of consent items. Before we approve the agenda, are there any consent items that you wish to pull from the consent agenda? And I'm going to go through them now because I'd have to go through them anyway as we approve them. It's the approval of the minutes from the last meeting, the auditor's warrants, the approval of human services warrants, that's the bills, cancellation of human services warrants, those are bills that were incorrectly paid or incorrect amounts, cancellation of human services, stale dated warrants, resolution 2023-50, health and human services resolution of transmittal, resolution 2023-51, the delegation of signature authority, the 2024 Woodland Centers Family-Based Services and Intensive Family-Based Services Contract, essentially a renewal of what we've been doing. 2024 Woodland Centers Family Community Support Contract, another renewal. West Central Interpreting Contract, and a snowmobile safety enforcement grant. So if there's nothing to be pulled from the consent agenda, I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Mr. Chair, I so move that we approve.
Commissioner
consent
Berg
agenda.
approves the, let's do the general agenda first, then we'll do the consent portion. Commissioner Berg approves the, moves to approve the agenda. Do I hear a second?
I'll second that.
Commissioner Dwayne Anderson seconds. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Then I would entertain the motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Commissioner Gardner moves on the consent agenda.
I'll second it.
Commissioner Dale Anderson seconds. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Well, it looks a lot less daunting now that we've turned the second page. So. All right, under general business discussions, first up is the planning commission recommendations. Eric?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Eric Van Dyken, County Zoning Administrator, here before you today with three action item requests from the Planning Commission meeting of December 11th. In the background there, I've noted there was a preliminary plat application as well. That's more informational. We don't act on the plat till it gets to the final. So we'll have today two conditional use permits that were originally heard there on December 11th, and one that's an old business that was remanded. I'll begin with an application of Andy Strailing. Mr. Strailing is requesting an auto detailing business. This is located in the old block auction building up there as you're approaching Spicer on the north side of Highway 23. And the Planning Commission did unanimously recommend approval of that conditional use permit request with three conditions and the findings as you see in the draft minutes.
So you've heard the application for Strailing. How do you wish to act?
Mr. Chair, I'll move the application with the conditions and findings as presented.
Commissioner Gardner moves on the Strailing conditional use permit. Do I hear a second?
Mr. Chair, I'll second that.
Commissioner Berg seconds. Any discussion? Comments? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Thank you. Moving next to an application of Pivot Energy. This is for a 1 megawatt solar facility down just southwest of Prindsburg. This is, if it looks familiar, it's because it is familiar. This is the third time we'll have be approving this. Each of the previous two times they have run up against their year expiration. First time, I think they had some difficulties with product availability, and the last time I think they were still working out some things with Excel on their connection. So I believe that they are now pretty much set to go. So hopefully this third time will be the charm for them. And with the 3 attached conditions and findings, staff recommends approval as per the Planning Commission's recommendation.
So you heard the planning commission's recommendation on Pivot Energy. How would you move?
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion that we approve this application with the conditions and findings as presented.
Commissioner Dwayne Anderson moves on Pivot Energy's conditional use permit. Do I hear a second?
I'll second it.
Commissioner Dale Anderson seconds. Yes, this is one. How many times, in case they run into trouble again, how often can they do this?
Well, as long as they weren't denied for a reason or something like that, there would theoretically be no limit to that. And I don't think it's because of irresponsibility on their part. There are some things in the industry that just do make it challenging at a time when there's kind of a rush for a lot of these in different places, so.
Very good. All right, all in favor, any discussion? Other discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you. And the last item is a continuation or finalization of a conditional use permit consideration for Travis Stratman. You may recall that in October, the Planning Commission held hearing and made a recommendation of denial on Mr. Stratman's application for a storage rental facility north of Green Lake, north of North Shore Drive. And at that time, when we came to the board then in October with that recommendation, there was some unease here at the board as to the relative strength or maybe the lack of development of the findings as contained in the minutes. They were perhaps a little too truncated. And so the board did remand to the Planning Commission for accentuation of those findings from the existing record. So that is what they did at the last thing on their agenda item at this meeting here in December. And the record here then in the minutes or the draft minutes of the Planning Commission will show that they did flesh that out with some more specific reference and some more discussion of how that use interplayed with some of the things they were seeing in the comprehensive plan, which was one of the things they originally were leaned on in their decision making on their original recommendation. So it's kind of a restated motion with additional findings attached. And so that's the recommendation before you today with a finding 1 through 5. And it specifically relates to one item in the findings that has to do with the consistency or harmony with the goals and objectives of the comprehensive plan.
Thank you. So you heard the explanation from Mr. Van Dyken. How do you wish to proceed? Commissioner Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First, Eric, I want to thank you for meeting with me yesterday, and I also want to thank the Planning Commission for fleshing out these findings. It was a concern of mine that they just, as you said, weren't developed enough. I'm satisfied that the findings as presented are developed well enough at this time. And I will move recommendation of the Planning Commission with the 5 findings as presented.
So Commissioner Gardner moves on the recommendation from Planning Commission. Do I hear a second?
I'll second it.
Commissioner Dale Anderson seconds. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Forget one?
No, I noted there that the preliminary plat is preliminary yet, and so the board will consider that when the Planning Commission makes recommendation on the final.
Thank you.
So yeah, it's probably a little confusing there. I did put it in the background there, but not an action item, sorry.
All right, no worries. So thank you for your presentation and Merry Christmas.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If I can proceed to
Yes, you may.
the next agenda item, if I may.
Hang on, I gotta get back to my agenda here. See. All right.
And I'm still Eric Van Dyken, the county zoning administrator. I'm here filling a water planner, with a water planner hat on right now, asking for your consideration or action on Resolution 2023-52. The force of this resolution will be to authorize submission of the completed One Watershed, One plan for the South Fork Crow River watershed area, and for the submission of that to Bowser, and then the county stated intent to adopt and begin implementation of this plan pending approval of the plan by the Board of Water and Soil Resources. And basically, this is a culmination of, several years again of planning, several $100,000 spent meeting. And we're, with the adoption of this plan, you could say we'll be about 3/4 covered under this new model of watershed planning that we're doing. You had the pilot project up in the North Fork of the Crow River. We had the Hawk Creek, Middle Minnesota area that we're in implementation for a while now on. And this will be the South Fork kind of to the southeast of the county. And we're very near completion also in the Chippewa. So we're excited to be getting nearer to the end of that, and we're starting to see some of the fruits of that in some of these projects. You talk about the fair project, getting funded some through that, different projects that are happening, and the money's even more than we originally anticipated. That Bozer came back and said, hey, look, we have more money. So like in the Hawk Creek, now we're applying even right now for additional funding for our first round here. So it's pretty exciting to see us move from lots of meetings and lots of talking to hopefully lots of action and lots of conservation work being put on the ground. So that's the request today, to keep this project moving forward.
So you've heard Mr. Van Dyken on resolution, South Fork One Watershed, One Plan Resolution 2023-52. How do you wish to proceed?
Mr. Chair, I would move that we adopt or pass Resolution 2023-52, which is a resolution to submit, adopt, and implement the South Fork Crow River Watershed Comprehensive Watershed Management Plan.
I couldn't have said it better. So Commissioner Dwayne Anderson moves on to resolution 2023-52. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Commissioner Gardner seconds. If you thought that was a long process for the South Water Fork, you should have been around when we did the North Fork, because I think we spent almost 4 years before we got one, but we were the pilot on the North Fork, and it feels like this one just started, actually. When did it start?
Oh, you're going to test me here.
I would say June or July
Yes.
of 2021, somewhere in there.
Year
It
and a
went
half.
really quick. It
Yeah,
actually did.
really.
Yep.
did-
So most people that, I think I was one of the new ones, but most of them had already gone through the process with other watershed
Right.
districts before, some of the commissioners, so they kind of knew.
So the pilots probably did work as intended.
I think so. It helped a lot. We talked a lot about the Middle Fork.
Yeah,
That-
we-
that- how
the
that
North
one
Fork,
went.
yeah.
Or North Fork.
The other name for that is guinea pig, right?
Yeah. All right, so any other comments?
Yeah,
or
so
discussion?
could I just?
Yes.
So when we did meet on November 27th, there were a lot of people there and some were upset, but I think they didn't really understand what the thing was. They were thinking that we were going to pick on the farmers and stuff. And I looked around, the people on that board, there were at least 3 of us that have been with a farming background, actually 4. And so the reason why we were on that committee was because we were concerned, and as farmers, we wanted to make sure that our voice was heard. So then we just kind of walked people through the plan pretty much, and showed them that it is voluntary. They can participate if they want. I know some of their complaints were, well, we have a lot of erosion problems on the South Fork, and our response was, well, that's what our purpose is here for, so different counties can get together and we can come up with a plan to kind of help resolve some of those issues that are on the river. So
Yeah, it's interesting, those, the North Fork and the South Fork, pretty stark contrast there between the lakes area. Not that there isn't lakes in the South Fork Watershed District, but compared to the North Fork and the number of people that live on the lakes and the rivers in the North Fork was pretty stark. And so there does seem to be until you get further east on the North Fork into Wright County, it seems to be more of a, almost a residential feel to the movement than it was in the South Fork. But I'm glad it went well. So all in favor of the resolution 2023-52 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Now you're dismissed and Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
All right, next up. Russ, you get 4 in a row. Don't let me
Okay.
dismiss you before you're done.
Thank you. Russ Hilbert, County Feedlot Officer and Aquatic Invasive Species Coordinator. The first item I have today is the delegation agreement work plan for the next 2 years for the feedlot program. For those of you not entirely familiar with the feedlot program, I do the inspections of feedlots that are in our county that are below the NPDS level, the level where the state takes over. I review any mirror management records, I address compliance issues, handle owner assistance, and any other complaints and stuff that come in, construction, permitting. So this work plan basically just details how I plan to do all of those things for the program, and then also specifies that I do agree to the minimum program requirements that the state requires. Are there any questions on the work plan? The one thing I'll point out is that I did change the number of inspections that were listed as the goal. Rather from a priority-based inspection plan, we've dropped quite a few feedlots. I feel like I can easily get to every feedlot required to register once in every 4-year period. So that is my plan. I only specify 22 because sometimes if you specify 60 and you end up with 58, the state can kind of make an issue out of that. So I just go with the minimum, and I know my plan is to reach all of them that I can, so.
So you mentioned a threshold. Is that 999 animal units?
1,000 animal units, or there are EPA large K-full thresholds as well.
Anything less than that is
Right.
you're responsible.
Correct.
And so when I was farming, a lot of these things were just kind of coming into play, and there was a lot of angst, if you will, a lot of feedlots and a lot of angst because they were built the way our grandparents built them. And do you find that when you go out there today, people are pretty understanding? You've got maybe a younger crowd than I am, that they're pretty understanding of the need and the requirements?
Yeah, I've talked to a few brand new registered feedlots in the last year or two, and they're very willing to work with me and want to hear my thoughts on how they could do things in a compliant manner with the feedlot rules, so.
Are you looking for action here today on that plan?
Yes, I would require approval of the work plan.
Okay,
The
so-
MPCA has reviewed it and approved it as well already.
All right, so looking for a motion to approve the feedlot work plan?
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to approve the feedlot work.
Commissioner Dale Anderson moves on the feedlot work plan. Do I hear a second?
I'll second that.
Commissioner Dwayne Anderson seconds. Any discussion or questions? Commissioner
So,
Dwayne Anderson.
okay, yeah, so my question is, so you technically inspect them every 4 years, and then if they're not compliant, you tell them what they have to do to get back into compliance, or?
I try to work with them and listen to what their ideas are to get back into compliance too,
Okay,
rather than try to force them into one particular direction.
okay.
Other question, Commissioner?
Russ, are you still, I just speaking from when you came out and inspected ours years back, are you still doing the silage inspections too for the pilings of silage and stuff too?
Yeah, that would be considered a feed storage.
That's part of this whole thing?
Yep.
Just curious, are you still seeing concerns with that, or has that kind of gotten better too?
I haven't seen a lot of concerns, really almost none since I started. You almost have to be on site during the silage piling to see any evidence of any discharge.
Okay, no, just curious.
All right. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right, watercraft inspection plan.
Yeah, the next item on that I have here is the is the plan for 2024 for the watercraft inspection. Basically, just specifies how many inspectors I plan to hire, how many decontamination units we plan to run, and what lake accesses I plan to staff inspectors. So very basic in nature, so.
Are there any major changes from the previous plan?
Just reduction of inspectors. So
Okay.
we were very high on the amount we spent on inspectors this past year, so my plan is to try to reduce that and see where we end up and then go from there.
So Russ is looking for approval of this plan as well, I take it?
Yes.
I'll make a motion to approve the 2024 AIS work plan.
Mr. Chair, I'll second.
Okay,
Is that,
watercraft inspection plan. I
Yep.
think is what we're getting. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Yep.
Dwayne?
so
Commissioner Anderson.
at our last AIS task force meeting, we had quite a bit of discussion about that. Is this tied with like any kind of grant dollars or how
Yeah,
does that- so if we cut it out completely, would we lose grant money or
You
how
would
does-
lose approximately $245,000.
Okay,
It's
yeah,
on the next item, it actually specifies it's $245,110.
all right, yeah, so, because some people at the meeting were saying it was kind of a waste of time because they were there during hours that, the fishermen weren't there. They got to be there when the fish are biting is kind of what the argument was. And, but then you got to get people to work there. So, but then some people liked it. So it's kind of give and take. But if it's associated with grant dollars, I think it's okay. And I think it still does some good because when people see that there's somebody there, I think they kind of, are more on their toes and will kind of look for things a little bit more if somebody's kind of watching them a little bit. So.
Other comments? Yeah, I was kind of around, when this all got started, the grant opportunities from the state and the whole funding thing. And so a lot of it was a process of education. I think most boaters today, watercraft people, whether it's recreation or fishing, it's become almost second nature for them when they leave the lake to know that to inspect and not put their craft in the water when they've got stuff hanging on it. So I think we've come a long ways, and probably your job is easier today than it was 4 years. Yeah. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right, we are down.
The next item I have is the Aquatic Invasive Species Prevention Aid Plan Resolution, requesting approval and also a signature on that one. That one just specifies how much funding we will be accepting from the state for 2024, and then how we plan to use that for the Aquatic Invasive Species Plan, as well as any carryover funds from previous years.
So we're looking for a motion on resolution 2023-53.
Mr. Chair, I'll move.
Commissioner Dale Anderson moves. Do I hear a second?
I'll second that.
Commissioner Dwayne Anderson seconds. Any questions or comments?
Yeah, so this is kind of the funny one where the money is kind of based on how many parking spaces we have at the public accesses, right?
Parking spaces and number of accesses.
Okay, yeah, so it's kind of.
Yeah, and
So in order to get more money, you need more parking spaces. That's why-
well, and it's interesting because the dollars actually have gone down from the original
Yeah.
allocation from the legislature. Is it almost 10 years now? Because some lakes and some parks have put in more like boat park. So the total amount of money hasn't changed. It just gets spread out a little bit broader than what it used to. On these grants, a lot of it is used by lakeshore owners, associations to combat like curly leaf pondweed and Eurasian milfoil, that kind of stuff, correct?
Yep.
And how does that work for a lake association? They come to you with an application?
Yeah, we have an application period that they would, and there's an application online. They would submit that, and then I bring that to the task force with my recommendation for funding on them. And then if they approve them, then I let the applicant know, and they apply for their permit from the DNR the next spring, and they're able to do their treatment.
And that has to be in pretty early, because I think one of them has to be treated in April, correct?
Yeah, curly leaf pondweed is best treated early in the year.
Yeah.
Because it will die off by July on its own anyway.
Yeah. And so the lake associations, it's become almost a flywheel process. They kind of know what's coming up, and that because of the work we've done over the years.
Yep.
Very good, thank you. Any other questions or comments?
Yeah, I'll just say, so we kind of discussed that at our last board meeting. That was in November, correct? Or was, yeah, so a lot of meetings, but yeah, so we went through the grant, approved
Right.
from a certain percentage or whatever, so.
So we have a motion and a second on resolution 2023-53. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right, your annual report.
Yes, the last item I have is actually 3 annual reports. The only one that's required is the very basic one that just shows how many inspectors we had, how many decontamination units we ran, and how many hours per access we staffed. That one is fairly basic. The next one is the metrics plan, or the one that says snapshot of accomplishments. That one gets a little more detailed, gets down to even how much we spend on each budget item. And then the third one is just nothing the DNR requests, but something that we do every year just to try to provide more detail to the commissioners and to the public of how our program runs. A couple of things I'll point out is we did come back up on the inspection rate per hour from the previous year. We did increase the number of those aqua weed stick stations at the access. It's a tool for boat owners to help to clean off their boat at the access before they leave. Those seem to have done pretty well. I think they get used quite a bit. Very well received, I think. So we also did develop the first of its kind audio player at an access. So far, that really hasn't caught on real well yet, but I'm hoping that may be a replacement to the sensor units that are fairly expensive to run. Another item I'll note is that we did handle the response to starry stonewort in Long Lake. I applied for the permit to do that, and then contracted people to address that infestation. And going forward, the Lake Association will take the lead on that through our local grant program.
All right, are you looking for
Requesting approval for those as
approval
well.
on these reports as well? Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion that we approve the 2023 AS annual report.
So we have a motion to approve the AIS annual report. Do I hear a second?
Mr. Chair, I'll second.
Commissioner Berg seconds. Any questions or comments? Could you expand a little bit on the starry stonewort in Long Lake? What is the status of that? How big a area is it, and kind of what are you doing to
Yep.
combat it?
I think it was the amount of infestation was just under a half acre, so they treated about a half acre of right out in front of the main DNR access. Some of that got to be in about 12 feet of water, so it was a little more difficult to get good treatment on that. The first time they treated it didn't really respond very well in the deeper water. Where it was shallow, it responded very well and was very effective. Then the second time we came around and treated, they used a different product. It was a crystallized form, helped it to sink a little quicker and stay in place longer, and it was a lot more effective. So
Is it still copper sulfate?
I believe it was a formulation of the copper sulfate. So,
And are we able to, or are they able to eradicate in the small places where they get like this one, if they treated a half acre, is it?
I don't think they would remove it from the infested waters list, but there is a track record if you catch it early that you can, have years where you may not have to do any treatment. I don't know whether it'll come back again because the bulbils, if they're in the sediment, they may come back a couple of years later or something, but there's a good track record in some other lakes that have done stuff where they did the combination hand pulling and chemical treatment and have done very well with it.
So an important part at least for Starry Stonewart, is vigilance, to be watching the lakes and doing watching for those inspections. Commissioner Burke, did you have a question?
Oh, actually, yes, I do. Along that same line, how do you look for it? I mean, you got a big lake, and is it just a combination of things?
Typically, there's an event every year. We haven't participated in the actual event, but I still do what's called a rake toss. It's basically two steel rakes. You cut the handles off and you tie them back to back on a rope. And you just throw it out and drag it back in, and you just look through the weeds to kind of see what's there and look for it.
Okay. So may I follow up? So when it does spread, will it spread from the original area, or is it other spots too? You have to just pick certain spots that you would think.
Where it's at in Long Lake, the DNR doesn't feel like there's a big risk of spread. It was fairly well grown, but it was in deeper water, so that they didn't feel like it was a big risk for boaters to move it.
Sure. Okay, thank you.
And the movement is, I'm sure by boats, the first place they found it was in Lake Coronas, just a few miles up the road from Long Lake. So it's pretty clear that it is being moved by watercraft. And if you attend Lakeshore Owners Association meetings in spring, encourage them to do that rake thing. Maybe get some soft drinks or adult beverages and get a crew together and go around the lake. I think they do it in September, right?
August.
August?
We haven't had a lot of luck in finding volunteers in the past, so that's why we haven't participated in the actual event the last couple of years. I usually just go around, take a couple of days and do it on my own. Or if I have a couple of lead inspectors to help, they can help during their shift as well.
All right, well, thank you for the information. I think we have a motion and a second we need to vote on here. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Do you have anything else for us, Russ?
No, I'll just grab a signature from you real quick.
Just the one? There you go. Merry Christmas.
Yep.
Okay, does anybody want to take a break, or should we keep going for a little bit? All right, then we're going to move to
Mr. Chair?
did you have?
Just to suggest maybe we move to Mr. Oden's. Does that work? The reason I'm suggesting that is just in case anyone wanted to be here when we talk about our salaries.
Is that up next?
Sure, I would.
What's the difference?
Yeah, I don't know
It's on YouTube.
yeah, let's just proceed. Otherwise, I'm going to get lost in here. Okay.
Yeah.
Good morning, Kelsey Baker, Candioi County Administrator. I'm here before you this morning to present the 2024 salaries for the Board of Commissioners. The only thing I did not include in your board packet, which I noticed this morning, is your current salary. I thought we should just remind you, if you're not aware of your current salary, is $40,741.86 is your 2023 wage. So 2024, I've included 3 different options with a 3%, a 5%, and then option 3 is a 5% and then a 3% COLA. That is what all the employees are receiving. And then in the past, the chair and the vice chair have received additional dollars as well. The chair at $1,000 and the vice chair at $500. So that is just included within your salary. A couple of years ago, the board moved to go with salaries instead of per diem. So this is, the per diems are included within your salary. I did some checking with our regional counties. It's tough. And then some counties like size. What's tough with this is it's really a cut down the middle where some counties still receive per diems. Some counties just get that salary with the per diems built in. And so I did that comparison. We're on the higher end. And so, but that really varies because it's based off each board at the time that approves that wage for the year. And so it is really the wishes of the board on which option you all would like to go with.
So I think you've all received these in your packet, and you've heard the explanation from Administrator Baker. I will consider a motion at this point for any of the, actually 4 options, right?
Well, you do have 4 options, correct, Chair. You could leave your salary as the same wage, or you could go with one of the 3 options presented in your board packet.
Okay. Anybody want to offer a motion?
This is where one item that I always present at this meeting that I do not provide a recommendation. It is really the 5 of you. And so I feel awkward not providing that recommendation to you. But yeah.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just looking for a clarification. I'm sorry I didn't ask this earlier. On this sheet, it says Chair additional 1,000, Vice Chair additional 500. You're not suggesting an additional above what we're already getting. They're just keeping that the same?
Keeping that the same, yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Berg?
Mr. Chair, thank you, Mr. Chair. And Administrator Baker, thank you for putting this together. I know this is, and doing the research for us. Historically, the last few years, we have given increases, and I talked to Administrator Baker during the budget time about 3 weeks ago, and I'm going, I'm really struggling with it this year. And part of the reason I'm really struggling with it is that a large budget we did have, and then the increases on the levies, and I'm finding it really difficult thinking that it's going to be hard to vote myself a raise, and I would like to make a motion that that we leave our salary unchanged.
So we have a motion.
And as well as the per diems for the chair and the vice chair, leave that the same.
So just to clarify, exactly the same as what we've had.
Yes.
Okay. So there's a motion on the floor to leave our compensation unchanged. Do I hear a second?
I'll second that.
Commissioner Dwayne Anderson seconds. Any questions or comments?
Yeah, my only concern is when we have conferences that, I don't know, it's a lot of time that we take away from home. And maybe in the future, we could look at maybe some sort of per diem or whatever for when we're gone for a conference, like the 2nd and 3rd day or something like that. Just something to think about for maybe next year.
If I may answer
Yes.
that, you really get those 2 options. Either you're going to get that salary or you're going to have a salary plus the per diems.
Okay, there's no like exception for like if you go for that? Or-
I would have to confer with our county attorney on that. I've never heard of that option. I would have to look into that if that could be potentially an option. Because they are fixed by the county board at this meeting for the following year.
Okay.
So that would have to be decided on, but that's something that I could look into.
Okay.
Yes. Commissioner Berg.
Mr. Chair, thank you. I'd like to state that in the past, we looked at raises, and we did several raises because we really fell behind. And I think it's important we don't fall behind.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at this year, and I think this is probably a good move for this year.
So to the comment that Commissioner Anderson made and Administrator Baker responded to, I think we as a board would have to go back to approving some level of per diem, and certainly we could do that for like fall policy and annual conference, some of those that take us out of town for a day or two. But the reason we got rid of the per diems, as I recall, is it's an auditing nightmare, and also all the local committees that we attend on a regular basis, they're not that burdensome in terms of being away and that type of thing. And I would agree with Commissioner Berg. I don't want to see us fall behind, but as I look to not only the 2024 budget, but also the 2025 and 26 wage increases that we'll have, I think that we need to be cognizant of the taxpayers and the levy that we probably will be facing here in the next couple of go-arounds. So any other comments or questions, or I'll call the question. Commissioner Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to note that if we were to select, for example, option number 1, that is about a $6,000 impact. And I am perfectly fine with the motion and the second, and I will vote for that. But I just want everybody to know this is not the huge budget impact that we're talking about. What we're talking about really is we're signaling to our staff and to our public that we're putting the staff first. And we're going to lead by example on this.
Any other comments or questions? Then I'll call a question. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Both same sign. Motion carries. All right, is Sarah here? I guess we do have to skip around a little bit. Why don't we,
Take a 10-minute break.
why don't we take a little break here? We had it in there, and maybe Sarah will be able to be here.
I ran into Sarah earlier, and she said she'd be here about 1:45. So
Yeah, so let's take,
5-minute break or
let's take a
something?
5-minute recess. We'll reconvene the Kanawha County Board of Commissioners. Next up on our agenda is PAC 4 Families Collaborative Presentation and Report. Sarah,
Hello,
welcome.
thank you.
For the record and those listening, will you state your name and who you're here to?
Yes, absolutely. I am Sarah Vonderhaar, the Executive Director of PAC for Families. I've been in this role for about a year now, so thank you for letting me come today and provide you with some of our updates on our initiatives and projects that we've going on throughout the year. We really have been working to serve our counties within our region, and we acknowledge that there's some diverse challenges that really influence our residents, and we're deeply committed to creating an inclusive and supportive environment where all families can thrive here in Candy, Ohio County, as well as our other four counties. In the past year, under the new leadership at PACT, we've continued to build robust collaboration with our local organizations, community partners, and dedicated individuals and families. Our focus has been on implementing programs and initiatives that really prioritize the well-being of families here in Candy, Ohio County, as well as our other 4 partner counties. We've renewed our efforts to expand our membership and really are working to secure appropriate funding for ongoing and future projects intended to address those identified service gaps that have been identified. Our collaborative efforts have really yielded some great progress this year, I think, resulting in a delivery of great, valuable services to our families and individuals across the service region. I'm really honored today to be able to provide you with an overview of some of the significant highlights that have happened this year, as well as other initiatives and things that have helped to build our shared vision. We do have a comprehensive 2023 review coming up in March at our annual meeting, and you're all invited to join us at that. I know that Corky will be there. And that the purpose of that will be to highlight some of the tangible benefits of our programming and show the progress that we've made with families across the service region. To start off with, I'd really like to just express my gratitude to all of you for your support and your guidance and your partnership as we are working to better the lives of people within Candy, Ohio County, and really work to strengthen and empower youth and families across the service region. Your commitment to community well-being helps to influence the direction of our services and our initiatives, and your insight and feedback today will be greatly appreciated as we continue to work towards the betterment of our communities. My aim today is to ensure that our time together is engaging, informative, and tailored to meet the needs and questions that you would have. So if you have any questions as I'm going through my presentation, please feel free to stop me, and we can do that. So I'm assuming you can all see my screen that I'm sharing here. Okay, perfect. So I always like to start off my presentations sharing a little bit about our mission, vision, and values, because I think as the executive director, it's really important that someone is continually sharing that information with people. So one quote that I came across recently that I thought was really relevant to our collaborative work was that alone we can do so little, together we can do so much. And I think through our collaborative efforts within the 5 counties, we have really been working to do that, and I think we are accomplishing some great things. Our mission is partners working together to strengthen families and support children in achieving their highest potential. We really have a vision of a healthy and safe and resilient communities where individuals and families and children care and support for each and offer support to each other. We're able to best meet the needs of the children and families through our partnerships that support the development of the innovative care models which enhance children's mental health and help us to address those service gaps that we know exist out there. We assure that families always have a voice at PAC for Families, that they're listened to, encouraged, and empowered, and we work to embrace strength-based and family-driven practices through especially through our Parent Advisory Committee, which meets once monthly in this building. We focus on prevention and early intervention strategies in our committees, in our 9 to 25 committee and our Early Childhood Committee, and we really strive for accessibility and cultural equity within our communities through our GIA program and through all of our programs. We believe in continuous measurement of the needs and outcomes while we maintain accountability, and we do this through our evaluation of our programs, and we are regularly evaluating and assessing our programs to make sure that we're effective in the work that we're doing. So in 2023, we have distributed about $45,000 of our $100,000 budget in discretionary grants. In Candy Ojai County, we provided funding to Prairie Woods Elementary for about $5,000 for essential sensory items for the classrooms to help students with sensory issues. And Jason Northrop at ACGC Elementary also received $5,000 to put a sensory hallway in his school at ACGC, which will be featured at our June full collaborative meeting. So if you're interested in learning about some of the sensory things that are happening in our schools, I invite you to join us that month. We recently helped to expand that project. They're putting an interactive projector in the hallway to help students with sensory issues throughout the day. Let's see. Becky Anderson here at Candy Ojai County Health and Human Services also received $3,500 for her truancy program, which supports strong students that succeed. And it was an opportunity this summer for some of those truant students to come together and build relationships, learn skills, and just develop a sense of belonging so that they would be more successful in their school journey. Another large grant that went out within all 5 of our counties was the Talking is Teaching grant, which was toolbox and milestone boxes that are distributed through the Wilmer Public Schools and throughout all of our 5 counties. And that was an $18,000 grant that went out for that program. We also, through our LCTS programs, have supported May is Mental Health Month. We did some advertising, and we last year we did advertising on the radio. This year we decided to forego the advertising and develop mental health crisis cards with information in English and Spanish for people to access crisis lines in times of emergency. In our ACES Coalition project for 2023, we've been working on a Youth Connections magazine, and it will be distributed throughout all 5 of our counties. Some of you maybe remember our ACES calendar that was distributed a couple years ago, and it's kind of a project to build off of that, which will talk about ACEs and substance use prevention and help parents to understand and talk to their kids about substance use, mental health, provide some great articles with local content that will be shared throughout the 5 counties. We're very excited about that project, hoping to get that out in the next few months. So, yes.
May I ask questions or ask you? Could you expand a little bit on ACEs because everybody may not be aware of that
Yeah,
and what it
so-
stands for? And
Yes.
yeah. I know it's
now you're
hard to
putting me on the
summarize
spot,
it, but
So, ACEs are adverse childhood experiences, and we know that kids who have a significant amount of ACEs tend to struggle a little bit more. So on the other side of ACEs is the positive childhood experiences. So in the work that we do at Hack for Families, we really try and enhance and build those protective factors within families to create more positive childhood experiences, because we know that ACEs can contribute to some of the issues that children have, but we also know that by increasing some of those positive experiences, they kind of offset each other. So a lot of our work is based on ACEs and trying to create resilience within our children. So that project is going to help to build the resilience by raising awareness about some of those ACEs and some of the issues that children and families face each day.
Commissioner Gardner also has a question.
Thank you. And so examples of ACEs for those of folks who are listening today
Sure.
would be,
So children who have parents who have been incarcerated, children who have witnessed domestic violence within their homes, children who have parents who use substances, who have been abused sexually or physically. Those are all examples of ACEs. So some of those hard things that happen to kids, and building up those protective factors, like one caring adult in a child's life, can make such a difference in building resiliency within those children and those families. So
thank you.
you're welcome.
I recall Supreme Court Justice Ann McKeague using, I might get the numbers slightly wrong, but I won't be far off, that even one ACE experienced by a child increases their odds by 85% of getting involved in the criminal justice system. So it has a huge impact on our social well-being.
It can. The research that has been done recently really talks about the positive childhood experiences and how that offsets it, because I think with some of the ACEs conversations, it's so dreadful that we are trying to build positive around it. So showing that there is resiliency that can also happen in our children through those positive childhood experiences and how important they are in offsetting that too. So it's very important, yeah. Another thing that our LCTS programming has supported this year is our trust-based relational intervention trainings. We have offered training, I think there was 4 trainings, and we were able to provide that training to professionals, parents, teachers, about 180 people throughout the 5 counties. So that was a great opportunity for people to learn about how they can work with families who have gone through some of those traumatic experiences and some of those ACEs experiences, how to work with those children and promote the positives experiences as well. Kandiyohi County has 3 school social workers that are funded through our Pact for Families Collaborative. The Wilmer Schools, New London Spicer Schools, and ACGC Schools currently have a school social worker that is supported through Pact funds. This year, for 2023, Pact provides 15% of their total salary and benefits. And in 24-25 we are working on transitioning those school social workers to school employees. So we will be contributing 10% of their salary and benefits for 24 and 25. And then 25 and 26, the schools will take on 100% of their salaries and benefits. We did develop a transition plan where the school social workers will stay on as PACT staff, but they will be totally funded through the schools. That was a complicated situation that happened as I was just coming into Pact for Families, and I think that we've really been working this year on repairing the relationships that were damaged through that transition process, and I think that we've been pretty successful in redeveloping some of those relationships and healing some of the hurt that took place during that transition conversation. But looking forward to continuing our efforts with engaging schools and school social workers through those programs. Our Connecting Families is another program. Connecting Families, Family Liaisons, and Wraparound Services are all going to be combined in 2024 to create what we're calling the Family Support Services here at Pact for Families. This program has currently been 3 separate programs, and we feel putting them together will cause less confusion for people who are receiving services from us. And some of the things that the Connecting Families and Family Support Services programs sponsor are sensory-friendly movies. Has been a big thing that has come out of Connecting Families. We've provided an opportunity for families to come together at movie theaters for some of the families who typically can't go to movies because their children can't handle the sensory things that are happening. So they turn the lights down or turn the lights up and turn the sound down so that and create a sense of no judgment for those families in those situations. And our last movie in Hutchinson had 147 people participate in it, so it was great. We do have another one coming up here in Kandiyohi County in New London that is sponsored through SWIFT, and that will be announced soon as we figure out which movie we're going to put out there for our families. We do have 2 part-time family liaisons working in our 5-county area to support families and caregivers as they walk their mental health journeys, maybe parents who are just learning about a new diagnosis or who are struggling in other ways with mental health, either themselves or with their children. So we have wraparound services that also support those families, and we just recently hired a new wraparound coordinator. Shar was here for over 20 years, and now so we're transitioning to new services there too. It's been wonderful to have some new people coming in. Other grants that we have throughout our 5 counties, the Partnership for Success grant is Renville, Kandiyohi, and Yellow Medicine counties. It's working on substance use prevention. We've seen a lot of changes in that grant with Annie Tepfer retiring after many, many years of service to Kandiyohi County and Renville County. And then I started with Pact for Families under that grant too. So there's been a little bit of turnover, but we do have some really great staff hired and working with that program right now. And I know Steve and Dwayne have both, or Commissioner Anderson and Commissioner Gardner have both sat on that board and witnessed the work directly, how that is going. So excited for our sticker shock campaign coming up over the holidays to raise awareness and ensure that the liquor is staying out of the hands of our youth, and really working on marijuana legislation and raising awareness about the dangers of marijuana within our youth. So that's been a great thing through the Partnership for Success grant. Our family permanency grant was one that worked with pre-adoptive and adoptive families. Unfortunately, we did not receive the funding to continue that program, but we continue to work with those families through our Connecting Families and Family Support Services. So we are continuing to look for other funding to continue some of those services as well. Our Journey to Independence program is one of our flagship programs, and it works with transition-aged youth. And in Candy, Ojai County, we've serviced 23 youth and 6 families through that program. What it focuses on is helping kids, youth in that 16 to age 21 transition age to transition into adult roles and responsibilities. The participants of that program are required to have a serious emotional disorder or a serious mental illness. So we know that those youth who are facing some of those serious mental health issues are going to have a little bit more challenge as they're transitioning into adulthood. So those programs work to build on education, housing, finances, social skills. We just work one-on-one with the youth through our coaches to support those youth in developing some of those skills. Yes.
Sarah, to that point on the program, how are participants, are they referred, or, I mean, how does someone get involved in that
Right.
program?
So all of our services are voluntary, but we do have a referral process. Most of our referrals come from human services, the schools, or corrections. So we work with some of those students who have been identified by teachers, by caseworkers, corrections workers. So this year, with the Journey to Independence program, you maybe have heard some of our radio ads on Q102, and maybe received an email, or if you're watching YouTube, we have a YouTube video also that is out there. But we've just been raising awareness about mental health and youth, and helping them to understand that we do have services that are available for them. And this is one of the email ads that went out for that. Again, raising awareness that we recognize that some of those challenges that youth face during that time are especially challenging for kids who have serious emotional disorders. And again, no judgment. We offer services that provide a sense of no judgment from our staff to make kids feel comfortable as they're transitioning into adulthood and learning those necessary skills.
Thank you.
Yeah. So with the Journey to Independence program, we identified that there was a pretty significant need with kids who didn't necessarily have serious emotional disorders or serious mental illness, but who were at risk for developing those. So we applied for a new program. The Road to Success program is for kids who are at risk of developing some of those serious issues. And so we're able to expand that transition service program to kids and youth from 16 to 25 now through this new program that we received from SAMHSA, which is about $650,000 a year every year for 5 years. So we're very excited to be able to expand that program to reach more kids within our 5-county service area. And in 2023, we did have 53 clients in all 5 of our counties with the JTI program. So we're very excited to be able to expand and have more staff available to service more children and youth within that program. So just in conclusion, I kind of like to come and ask that we all work together. So I am encouraging each of you to amplify your voices as you're more aware of mental health, to talk to people about mental health, raise awareness, engage with a purpose. If you feel so inclined, join us at our full collaborative meetings, and stay up to date on the things that are happening with our programs. Make referrals. It's all voluntary. Anyone can make a referral. Embrace innovation. Some of the things that we're doing are not something that has happened in our counties before. So I encourage you to learn about what we're doing and advocate for us, advocate for our impact, celebrate our successes, even the small ones. collaborate beyond boundaries. Anything you can do to collaborate with us, we're very appreciative of that. Stay informed again about our things, and please be inspired and inspire others through our work at PAC for Families. So thank you for allowing me to share all of those updates. I get a little long-winded sometimes, so.
Thank you, Ms. Von der Haar. Commissioner Berg, I'm sure you have something you want to.
Oh, absolutely, yeah, I'm just going
I'd
to.
be disappointed if, because
Actually, yeah.
I don't- yeah.
It's a great committee to be on. Yeah, PAC 4 for Families has been around for 20-some years, and a lot of successes taken place in that. And it's unique, and for those individuals that may not know, it's PAC 4, but there's really 5 counties now. But when it was formed way back in history, I can recall some of that, and you're aware of the history of it as well, too, that the state legislation, there was state legislation about forming collaboratives. And that was way back when people really didn't know what the definition of collaboratives is. And some people still don't know. They think of a partnership. And yes, it's a partnership, but it's more than that. You think together outside of where you're at. And it was really formed to eliminate silos, where community corrections, human services, public health, schools, we're all got our own thing going on. And most counties, I believe, in the state just had a county collaborative, and some still do. Where from the get-go, we were thinking of our region because the schools go across county lines and so forth. And we really blurred the county lines in this, which has been an asset we didn't think of originally, if I remember, that gives us a chance to get a grant. Instead of competing with the other 4 counties for a grant, we can come in as 5 counties and we can meet the needs, and each county is a little bit different. And it's amazing how through the leadership like your own, as well as the other leaders we had in the past with PAC 4, that we can meet individual needs of counties, but we can also go across the boundaries equally. So it took a while, I think, with the collaborative for the counties and all the different other providers, like, well, I don't want to take my money and they use it over there. Well, we got to think of the region, and because they're all our kids, and if we work together, we do better. And just as your mission and vision statement was made, but thank you, and I just wanted to add this history of it to it. So it's a good program. But I did have one question. Do you have any idea how many other counties went together to do a collaborative and are still in existence in the state?
I have a map of collaboratives, and I think there's like 50 collaboratives across the state, but we are the largest collaborative region-wise. I think that Hennepin County probably has the largest population within their collaborative, but we have the largest area. So we do have a lot of hard work to do with our collaborative efforts. It is very hard to collaborate with 5 counties and pull everybody together, but I think since I've been in leadership, we've seen an increase each collaborative meeting by about 4 people every month. So we're up to almost 50 people at our full collaborative meetings, and it's been great to have some collaborative conversations to share what's happening in each of the counties so that we can duplicate some of those things and talk about things that aren't working, things that are working. We've had some really valuable conversations and are building some great relationships and great initiatives. So very excited about the future of the collaborative.
And I wasn't trying to give you a bad time. Because that historical perspective is actually kind of helpful. You mentioned that we started out with 4 schools and now there's 5 schools, and I can probably figure out 4 of the 5, but can you name the schools for me?
Oh, we have 9 schools, I believe, in.
Well, I thought I heard 5.
5 counties.
5 counties, 5 counties,
okay.
yep. Let's see, you are gonna.
No, if it's 5 counties,
It's pretty
then
much
it's gonna
all
be
of
a
the
tough
schools. So we have 3 school social workers in our schools, but we do have other schools. All of the schools within Canby, Ojai County do work with a collaborative.
And is PACT an acronym?
Putting all communities together,
Okay,
yeah.
all right, very good. Commissioner Dwayne.
Since you mentioned acronyms, GUIA, what does that stand for?
GIA is actually Spanish for coach.
Oh, okay, so it's not an acronym, it's
Nope,
a
that is
word.
correct.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay,
so-
because it's all caps. So.
Yeah, our GIA program, I didn't talk about our GIA program, but it focuses on the cultural needs within our community.
Okay.
So we do have a Latino Spanish-speaking coach that works with our Latino families, and we have a Somali coach that works with our Somalian community here in
Okay.
in Candiota County, and they've both provided some essential services to the families within our county. So it's been wonderful.
Okay, thank
And
you.
that program is actually due to end on June 30th. So we're looking at ways that we can continue to expand that timeframe to keep our staff on and ensure that we're being culturally responsible about the services that we serve, that we provide.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Other than the two Andersons could probably provide some Swedish or Norwegian if they need some. All right, well, thank you very much for that informative presentation, and happy holidays to you and
You also have a
your
wonderful
family.
day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. So we're going to get an update from Cody Brand on the MnDOT project at Highway 9 and Highway 23, and County Road 40. Come on up to the podium, state your name and your position for the record, because we have an audience here that,
Well, good morning, everybody. My name is Cody Brand, and I am a district traffic engineer for Minnesota Department of Transportation out of here in Wilmer.
okay.
And I'm Dave Nyland. I'm a project manager for District 8, and I'm the project manager in charge of this project.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch the last name.
Nyland.
Nyland, thank you.
All right, well, we're here today to share the intersection control evaluation for Highway 23 and Highway 9 in New London, and then also the potential future leg of County Road 40. The ICE report or intersection control evaluation, it's really a formal documentation to document the process of evaluating different intersection types at Highway 23 and Highway 9, and then in conclusion to get concurrence from the other road authorities that would be at the intersection that they support the recommendation for the intersection type at Highway 23 and Highway 9. So I'll go through a summary of the ICE report. I'm not going to go through the entire report in great detail. It is about 100 pages. It's fairly technical. And I'll just start with kind of the recommendation is an interchange at Highway 23 and Highway 9. So as you are probably aware, we had went through a previous ICE report and recommended a J-turn at the intersection that had taken place 2017, and then we were looking at construction around 2021. And due to some concerns, we had paused that and went back and listened to what are the needs of the community, the stakeholders, the business owners, the highway users in that area to relook at this intersection and see what is really the best fit for the intersection. So really the first step was to get back together. We formed a committee to really dive into understanding what the issues were at the intersection, and we identified 5 intersection priorities. The first one being increased safety for the drivers and pedestrians at the intersection. The second priority is to keep traffic moving along Highway 23. The third priority was to allow for future growth within the vicinity of the intersection. The fourth priority was minimize impacts on adjacent businesses. And the fifth priority was implement a safety improvement in a timely manner. And those aren't really in any particular order. They don't necessarily reflect like the order of importance, but those were really the 5 categories of priorities that we were trying to meet as we reevaluated the different alternatives for the intersection. So a little bit of crash history out here. This is one of our highest crash rate intersections within our trunk highway system in District 8, which is what we represent. It's a statistically significant crash rate that exceeds the average crash rate, and then also what we determine being a critical crash rate. That critical crash rate means that we set a certain threshold of, at this point, it is not just above the average, but it's also statistically significant. So it was a very high priority intersection from MnDOT's perspective regarding safety and the crashes that we were observing out there. The dominant travel patterns, we'll just touch on that briefly. Out of all the traffic that's coming through the intersection, about 43% of the traffic is through travel on Highway 23. So it continues either before or after the Highway 9 intersection. About 42% of the traffic is turning between Highway 9 and Highway 23 to the south. So that's a large percentage of traffic that's making that movement to and from New London. And then there's about 15% of the traffic is heading from Highway 9 going north towards St. Cloud on Highway 23. So it's important to recognize what those traffic movements are as we're looking at what alternatives might fit well with the intersection. We want to make sure that we're causing the least amount of delay to the heaviest movements along that corridor. So we had looked at 4 alternatives when we had begun reevaluating the intersection. We had looked at an interchange alternative. We had looked at a J-turn alternative. We looked at a roundabout alternative. And then we looked at a signal alternative. And we had conducted some public engagement along with various stakeholder meetings to solicit feedback on these alternatives. And where we arrived at is we got to a point where we determined that we were going to eliminate 2 of the alternatives from further consideration. And so we had eliminated the J-turn alternative as it did not have public support. And then we had also eliminated the traffic signal alternative as that did not really address the safety issues at the intersection. And it was also a fairly costly alternative in order to get the grade of the roadways to work. We had quite a bit of reconstruction to perform on Highway 23. So it wasn't quite as simple as just putting in a traffic signal. There was quite a bit of other work in order to make that feasible. So what that left us with was the interchange alternative and the roundabout alternative, which is where we had kind of taken a bit of a pause as the county had put in for solicitation for corridors of commerce funding. We did end up receiving corridors of commerce funding, and so therefore the interchange alternative was really the alternative that met those priorities the best. Prior to having that funding awarded to us, really the big sticking point was kind of that last priority of implement a safety improvement in a timely manner. Without funding, we were not sure that an interchange could be implemented in a timely manner, and we felt that, a roundabout could. So with the solicitation and award of that corridors of commerce funding, it really met all of those 5 priorities that were identified for the intersection. And so we were able to come forward and recommend the alternative of an interchange. So what we're looking for today is really the concurrence of the county that we can move forward with signing this ICE report documenting that we are all in agreement that we're going to move forward with an interchange concept. Now, as far as the interchange goes, I just want to state that really the purpose of us coming here today was to get that agreement that the interchange is the appropriate alternative. There will be future engagement, public engagement, and with the county, the city, all of our stakeholders to really dial in what are the details of that interchange. What do the ramps look like? What's the roadway configuration? So those details at this time are not finalized. They will continue to be worked through, and we will have future engagement and meetings to discuss those details and work those out.
Thank you. Maybe it would be appropriate at this time for, Dave, do you have anything that you wish to add?
I think you said it just one.
Okay. Maybe it'd be appropriate for Public Works Director Mel Odens to, if you have any comments regarding, I don't think there's going to be any issues with us giving you that approval, just so you know.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, Mel Odens, County Board, or County Public Works Director. God. No, I think the message here that I would say to the board is, there is a safety issue out here. We all know that. And I think what Cody is saying is we need to implement it in a timely manner. And I think what we need to remind the board is that we listen to the public, which I think is our job. We pursued the money. In this case, the county board pursued the money. We were able to get the money. So I think we can, my recommendation would be to sign this ICE report and let's get moving with the next step.
Very good. So, go ahead.
Mr. Chair, I just want to make a comment. If you are inclined to make the motion, I know you're the chair, I think you should be making the motion when the time
make a
comes.
motion. But
It's
I-
your district,
but I
and you
will-
put a lot of time in
But I
that.
do have a comment about, yeah, go ahead.
No, that was it.
Well, I was in on this from the beginning, and it seems like you said 2017, so 6 years.
Yeah, 2017 was the initial corridor assessment on Highway 23 that was part of that recommendation for the J-turn initially.
And it seems like it was yesterday, and I know time goes by pretty fast, but I think we're all really anxious, and the county is ready to roll here if, whenever we can get the design and final design done, and appreciate MnDOT for listening to the community. I mean, it was pretty emotional at times, and there was a lot of passion involved, and a lot of work got put in. So, I want to thank everybody for hearing us out and hearing the community out, and so full speed ahead. So you're looking for, we need a motion to accept this.
Yeah, we need, the motion would be to accept the study evaluation and authorize myself, in this case, to sign on behalf of the county.
So I'd entertain that motion.
Mr. Chair, I'll make that motion.
Commissioner Dwayne Anderson makes a motion. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Commissioner Gardner seconds. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you very much, gentlemen, and happy holidays.
Thank you very much. Have a great day.
All right, we got some final payments and resolutions that Mr. Odens is going to present.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, I've got a few agenda items. The first one's going to be our,
And you are? For those that are
was-
listening.
He was trying to give himself a promotion earlier.
Mel Odens, Public Works Director for Telluride County. Sorry about that. So the first one that I have for you is our annual maintenance striping. We do about 200 miles every year. This year we did knock a few miles off because of some of the roads were under construction, in this case, County Road 44 and part of, I believe, 4. But we do, this year was, we do that, every 3 years we do, this year we did the south half of the county. And all the municipal areas. So it's my recommendation to approve that project and pay the 1% final retainage in the amount of $1,331.64. So accept the project and authorize final payment would be the appropriate action.
So you've heard the recommendation of Mr. Odens. I look for a motion.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to accept the project and make final payment to Sir Lines-A-Lot LLC.
Commissioner Dwayne Anderson moves. Do I hear a second?
Mr. Chair, I'll second.
Commissioner. I just wanted to say that. Bird seconds. I just make a note about the line. I had a opportunity about less than a month ago, when I was at an ACO meeting in St. Paul, to tour the IBM 3M Initiative Center, Innovation Center it's called, and where those glass beads were developed for in this. It's an amazing, if you ever get the opportunity, it's an amazing tour, so that was kind of fun. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Both same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. Please proceed.
So, Mr. Chair, the next item I have is a MnDOT cooperative construction agreement for, in this case, for lighting at Howick on our County Road 2. As part of the Highway 23 South Gap project, we had entered into an original agreement that would provide some trail maintenance as well as lighting at the entrance into Howick, our County Road 202. And now what this one does is it amends that original agreement and it adds lights at the Regal Road or County Road 2 that goes north. Well, in this case, south now too, because they align that road. So that wasn't in the original agreement, but we added that during the course of construction just for the safety of the intersection. So with that, I would recommend to the board to authorize the administrator and the chair to sign the resolution and the agreement on behalf of the county.
So you've heard the recommendation from staff on Resolution 2023-55. Look for a motion on that agreement.
So move.
Commissioner Gardner moves. Do I hear a second?
I'll second it.
Commissioner Dale Anderson seconds. Any questions or comments? Lighting at intersection. I got an email just this morning from someone who indicated that an intersection could use some lights, and I see Stearns County has done it a lot. Is that proven to be effective in crash controls? Because I don't like the one right by my farm.
It's kind of unusual, and you know, that's why I asked Cody to stick around since he's the traffic guy. But maybe I should just have him come up and explain it. But in the crash studies and when we did our county road safety plans, what's unusual about it is even a light at an intersection, even during the day to see the pole, it gives you a clue on where to turn. And in this case, there is no, for traffic movement, normally you want consistent traffic movement. You don't want this inconsistent traffic movement. And if somebody can see where they're gonna go without hesitation, they go there at the speed and then they stop and turn. And we just didn't want people to be hesitating on, because it's the South Gap and it's a major road, and the Regal, go north of Regal or south at Howick is a large turn. And so we just didn't want them to.
Yeah, it seems like a no-brainer for like a 4-lane road and an intersection like that, but I'm talking about like two county roads being, two county road intersections, and maybe it's not fair to ask Cody to answer that one, but,
I think it's fair.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, there is a measurable safety benefit for providing lighting at intersections. You know, that always has to be balanced with the cost of it, though. Not only is there initial cost with installing the lighting, you know, a light system is probably running around $20,000 to $25,000. But then there's ongoing maintenance that you have to pay for the power. They get hit and you have to repair the knockdowns. You have to repair luminaires or replace luminaires as they burn out. And so, you know, there is considerable cost initially and ongoing cost that's associated with lighting. And so I don't have a recommendation for, you know, at what sort of traffic levels maybe lighting is warranted. Unfortunately, there's not hard set warrants nationally for light systems. There are some guidelines as to when lighting might be recommended, particularly around nighttime crashes. But as Mel pointed out, there are daytime benefits as well. So, you know, I can't give any recommendation as to really when to install lighting on a county road system, but there is a measurable safety benefit for lighting at intersections.
Okay, thank you. We're looking for some action here. Are we?
Yeah, correct. It
Are we
would,
on- we have a motion on 2023-55, but we don't have a vote yet, right?
Right.
So all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you.
and then the last item I got, Mr. Chair, is, this is relating to part of the land sale that we bought in relation to the Wilmer Y. We bought previously, we had bought 84 acres from Phil Quam, and part of the agreement when we bought the property was that he would have first right of refusal when we sold the excess property to either match the offer that was made or basically do whatever he wants to do. If he wants to match the offer, then he could buy the land back for himself. But what was not in there was that specified the timeline for him to react to that offer. And so what this does is it's a right of first refusal agreement, which Philip has signed, that gives him 7 days to react when we sell the property to match that offer. And so it's my recommendation to authorize, I believe in this case, the chair and, but in this case, it's the chair and the auditor because it's a financial transaction, so.
Mr. Chair, I so move to recommend that we support the first refusal of agreement for the chair and as stated, let's put it that way.
So, go ahead.
I was just gonna say why the auditor signed it was because it was during a board meeting, was our closing time. And so we had Mark Thompson, our auditor treasurer, sign on behalf of me.
So we have a motion on the floor to accept this agreement, right of first refusal agreement with Phil Quam.
I'll second that.
Okay, Commissioner Dwayne Anderson seconds. Well, Mel, do we have a timeline for when we offer that land for sale?
So we've been working with Flattable Auctions and we're looking at February. So what we would do is we would bring back to the board once all the details are prepared and we're ready to sell. So you will see this one more time for final action before we would actually sell it. So,
And can you tell us again, is it one parcel and the size of it?
it's one parcel in this case for 84 acres.
84 acres, thank you.
And we sold 3 parcels a year ago, March of '23. We sold just under 45 acres. And this will leave us 1 parcel on the west side yet to sell.
All right, and that map is in our packet.
Yep.
All right, so we have a motion. Any other questions or comments?
Mr. Chair. I will second, but I will also ask Attorney Baker to.
Thought we had a second.
I didn't hear you say that we had a second.
made
Oh,
the
okay, thank you. Then I've just asked Attorney Baker to clarify something on page 264.
Yeah, we're looking at item 3, where it says failure to exercise. Appears there's a typo regarding, in the second line, the word grantee. It says if the grantee does not exercise the right to purchase, so if Quam doesn't exercise the right to purchase, Quam shall, upon the request of this grantor, that's the state, execute and deliver to,
Grantor.
that should be grantor. Because Quam would be delivering the quitclaim to the state, extinguishing his rights.
Sure. Gotcha.
All right, so to the maker of the motion.
I certainly will accept that friendly
For that
amendment.
correction in a second. All right, thank you. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you.
That.
All right. Anybody need a break? Then we'll keep moving. Health and Human Services update. Caroline Kahn.
Would like to follow along? Just one moment. All right. Well, good morning, Board. My name is Caroline Kahn. I have the opportunity to serve Candy, Ojai County as the Health and Human Services Director. Just celebrated just over 5 months. It's been a fast and furious opportunity to get to know an incredible team and the incredible work that that team does to support our community. So this morning, I'm just coming to you with an opportunity to provide an update of some of the work that's been done, some of the work that's coming forward, and just an opportunity to remind our community of the great work that's being done through our Health and Human Services Department. So just a refresher about what we do. Our mission statement is to work in partnership with our community to promote the health and safety of residents of Candy, Ojai County in a caring, professional, equitable, and fiscally responsible manner. So in short, what we do is we help protect our community's most vulnerable populations. We help steward public funds to ensure that a safe and healthy community for all Candy, Ojai County residents, and provide infrastructure and oversight for private sector expending public funds. So to do that, our team is separated up into various teams. So I'm just going to do some high-level overview of some of the teams that we operate to serve the needs of our community. In 2023, our Children's Services team had the opportunity to restructure through board approval. We were able to bring forward a Children's Services manager, which then provided some additional oversight and supervision for our Children's Services team, which is approximately 44 individuals of 156, approximately. With that, then we have 3 supervisors as well. We've seen that over the year that we've had a positive correlation to the staff longevity since we've been able to provide some additional oversight and supervision and support for our staff. I wanted to highlight that in 2015, the governor put forward some recommendations for how Children's Services should be structured, and that's with a 1 to 8 supervision. So each supervisor supervising up to 8 individuals, and then each of those individuals having a caseload of around 10. Currently, our Children's Services structure does not meet those governor's recommendations, but is certainly on path to continuing to elevate what we do through this new structure that was introduced in this year. Our supervisors supervise approximately 15 individuals, and then each person that they supervise carries a caseload of more than 10 at this time. But since we've made these structure changes, I wanted to highlight some of the successes that we've had from that, including our out-of-home placements that are trending downward, significantly downward. If you look on the screen, of an average of 120 a month in 2022 to 87 a month year to date. That's a significant trend downward, and it really goes to speak to the significant increase of the upfront supports through this new structure, and then the way that the team is supporting natural supports around families versus social services only. We've utilized some of our opioids funds to help make these changes, and that's really supported our families in relapse prevention efforts and putting a lot of work up front to make sure that families are equipped for success long term. Another highlight through this year is we had the opportunity to receive a Prime West Community Reinvestment Grant, which we're excited to roll out into the coming year around caregiver coaching. So what this program will do will help support caregivers that are being matched automatically to a coach, and a minimum of 2 to 4 early intervention supportive coaching sessions immediately upon placement. So this will help create a stronger system in which those children entering into the system, whether they are with a new family or with a family member of a blood relative that has extended their home to provide placement for that child, really creating a positive support structure around them. So we're excited for this opportunity that we've been awarded through Prime West and to see the impact that that will have on our families moving forward. Another note, as just to point out, our out-of-home placements have decreased, but we have seen an increase in our truancy caseload, but that again is more of a preventative strategy which can help support families and individuals and youth in their homes prior to elevating to a higher case need. Next, I wanted to talk a little bit about our adult and disability services, and I did include adult mental health in this adult structure, and typically we wouldn't. But our MnChoices is going through a process at a statewide level of transitioning our platform from our traditional MnChoices assessment to a new program called Revision. Their hopes is after we get this rolled out that it will be a more efficient platform for our staff to engage with. But it will take some time and effort over this next year to complete that process. I thought it was also interesting to point out that on an average month, we are providing 22% of our assessments for other counties. Because of the way Willmar is structured and the regional supports that it offers, we often have individuals residing within our county boundaries that have a different county of responsibility. So the work that our staff are doing are helping to support other county needs as well. On an average month, our ongoing case managers for waiver services are serving about 600 persons. And then also wanted to highlight that since 2015, 2023 happens to be our highest year of vulnerable adult cases at year to date. So seeing an uptick in that and just kind of the overall health of our community and how things are playing forward. But wanted to highlight some of those.
If I may interrupt.
Yep,
you just for a second.
absolutely.
If anybody has questions, would you prefer we wait till the end, or would you?
I'm open to whichever suits you best. So if you have a question off the top of your head, I'll take it.
Well, I do, right now on the vulnerable adult cases are
Yep.
higher than average at 20. Do you have any reasons that you can?
You know, we're seeing increase in fraud and in an increase in other family individuals. I think there's a lot of more awareness also around what people should be reporting. And you know, as we have an old population that's aging and becoming more in that vulnerable adult population, and then their children. So there's some of that at play. I can't speak to exactly what these cases are, but exactly coming through, but I do know that that's a heavy amount of work, or those investigations of misuse of a parent's funds, for example.
What about, we're inundated on almost a daily basis with fraud attempts. You know? Some kid or somebody says, I'm in jail and I need this money, or I tried to deliver a package and I need $3 in order to, is that considered a vulnerable adult thing? Because
It would certainly be a reportable experience, depending on the individual that's receiving the call.
so my guess is that the vast majority are not even being reported.
My guess is a vast
I'm a little
majority are
embarrassed
not.
about the $3, you know.
Yep,
deals.
yep, and or like older adults that reside in their home would not be necessarily considered vulnerable unless they had a diminished capacity mentally, but if they're residing in, say, a skilled nursing facility based off of their residence, they would. So it kind of depends on, based off some of those indicators too. So we always encourage people, like, if you have a doubt, so say you heard that your parent had one of those phone calls, just call, and then let the intake work through that process. But we'd rather have someone call and not have something than not call at all. So, but that does play a role, and we have seen an uptick in that. But as our community continues to age, more and more individuals will fill into that vulnerable adult population as just by natural occurrence too. So we will continue to see an uptick likely in this.
Sure. And I'm going to back you up a little bit to
Yep.
Children's Services. You talk about out-of-home placements. When an out-of-home placement is made to a relative, say grandma and grandpa or something like that, is that still considered out-of-placement when it goes to a relative?
Yep, because they are out of their home and it came through a Children's Services experience.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, along the same line, that's fabulous, going from 120 a month down to 87.
Yep, we are going to smile when the sun's shining.
Yeah, absolutely. It's good. That's a great report. The number of 120 a month in 2022, can we blame that on COVID and other things, or what? And was it the year before? You have any
What was
idea?
it in 2019?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't have those numbers with me specifically, and not being a part of it. I do know that those, obviously, that season of our lives has certainly played an impact. And, you know, this is one of like I mentioned, we're smiling while the sun's shining. It could change drastically tomorrow. It's such a vulnerable piece that we're proud of the number that it's at, but when it pivots, it's not necessarily a direct reflection of the work that we're doing. But supporting families prior to placement is something that we can control, and helping do some of these preventative pieces. So I think that from my understanding of the team's work, is that they've taken a really heavy lens, part of that restructure process, part of that strategic planning around how do we support families earlier on a more early intervention strategy than when we get to an out-of-home placement experience.
Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
Yeah, just another follow-up. Restructuring, it certainly looked like it made a difference, and that's really positive. I'm glad to hear that. Also, I believe the board added some staff.
Yep.
And that was part of that restructuring as well. And I'm assuming then that helped lower those numbers as well.
Yes, and that's why I
Very
wanted to call attention to that. One is a gratitude, you know, and I I don't want to sound ungrateful, but we still have work to do.
Yes, oh, absolutely.
But
It's never done.
it's certainly rewarding to see that the efforts made so far
Mm-hmm.
have made a significant impact for the children that we serve and the families. You know, we have to understand that it's not just the children that are involved in this scenario too. It's their parents, their grandparents, their aunts, uncles, cousins, everybody's involved in this story when, so it's really a rewarding experience to see the investments that the board had made about helping allow for this restructuring. But there will be continued efforts to continue to serve our community best. I don't know if you guys have had the opportunity to read the last installment of the children's articles through the Star Tribune, but that was actually an installment that was a very positive one because it highlighted the significant impacts and investments made by Hennepin County into their children's services work and the positive implications that they're seeing now from a staff training and retention standpoint too. So although I don't necessarily tout every one of the articles, I'll say that online, it was rewarding to see that some of those investments, same as we're seeing here, it's very much emulated that those investments in the structure and supports of our children's teams are making an impact in our community.
And I was gonna wait till the end for this question, but then you brought up structure and staff. You didn't bring an organizational chart along by any chance, did you? It's not part of our.
Sorta. If you'd like
Maybe
to
in a
see that
future-
later, we can.
In a future presentation, we could go through. it. It has
Yep.
changed.
Yep, so today was a high-level overview of an opportunity to continue to lay the groundwork for future engagement and sharing our story of the work that's being done. Because as we all know, it moves quickly because we work with human lives every day. We work with hearts, and not every day is the same. So I wanted to start to create an opportunity of an engagement platform in which we can help tell our stories to this team and continue to engage in that dialogue. So in the future presentations, I'll be sharing more in detail about our structure and our opportunities and efficiencies that we can.
And I didn't mean to discombobulate you with
No, that's
the
fine.
questions, so if you can go ahead and proceed.
But if I may, the organizational chart has not changed since
No.
it went into effect for 2023.
But I
You
don't think
approved,
we've seen it though with Jolene.
correct, but that was the organizational chart that the board approved, so that
Has not
org
pivoted.
chart has not changed. The individual names that we keep track of, it's a lot of moving parts sometimes, that the board has not seen. Is that something the board has received in the past?
Yes.
With all of the names and everything?
And I think would be
All of
helpful.
the employees?
Yeah,
Okay.
Okay,
great.
yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. We're happy to share our piece. But yes, so like Administrator Baker said, the structure itself has not changed. I always say we just have people sitting on different seats on the bus. So we might, it seems like a lot of moving parts, but somebody might just join a different team or get promoted within a space and create a vacancy there. So next, I wanted to highlight some of the work that's being done around mental health in our community through our department. Again, I understand I have a limited amount of time, but I don't, so if I do need to slow down, please let me know. But I just wanted to highlight some of the work that's being done. So through our department, we serve seriously emotionally disturbed children as well as seriously and persistently mentally ill adults, creating that catch basin for individuals and additional supports for those most at need in our community. Through these services, we've seen an increase of complexity and needs surrounding our neighbors amid a demand for growth and service shortages. So it's no secret that there's a shortage of mental health services and providers, and our county is no different. And we're really working strong to how do we work with what we have to meet the needs of where we're at and encourage other providers to continue to grow and elevate. And I really want to highlight some of the work that's being done by our adult mental health supervisor, Corinne Torkelson, who's really brought together a multidisciplinary team across county departments as well as providers. And since I've joined the department a few months ago, we've had multiple meetings in which we engage with health system partners, behavioral health partners, as well as our sheriff's department and our corrections department to really kind of look at individuals systematically and say we're called out to an individual's home 6 times, but we have no other way of engagement. How can we come around and circle that individual to provide them with the needs that they need? and what kind of systems and structures can we place within our community to accomplish that. So I think that's a really forward-thinking approach and takes an hour here and there for that team to get together and really sit down and address gaps and highlight opportunities. Another mental health project I really wanted to take a moment to share with you is one that I'm really proud of because it was fun to watch, and I'm so excited to watch it grow legs in 2024. But through our public health, community health assessment, one of our community health improvement projects is around mental health, as well as children's mental health services through Human Services had an opportunity for a children's mental health grant. And those two teams really came together to create a plan of how do you best utilize these dollars moving forward. And part of that plan that I wanted to highlight today, and the rest I'm going to have you seated on the edge of your seats for a future presentation, but is our out-of-home placement bags. So through our partnership with Public Health and Human Services, they came up with an idea of a mental health bag that could be a backpack provided to a child that is removed from their home, that would have things that are positive support messaging, notebooks for journaling, areas of tools, and then things that could provide them with a 988 crisis and suicide text line and hotline, and other things to promote mental health supports and end the stigma. That was a very unique fashion of an idea that no one had prior to entering that meeting, and it was fun to see the two teams work collectively towards a shared goal. And I'm excited to watch that continue to grow through fruition.
What is the age of the recipients of that project?
So that project specifically, they created a youth bag, so it would be like 12 and under, and then a teen bag. So that each bag is different based off of the age group and has different items included that are more age appropriate. So a water bottle, hydration is a great portion for mental health. So the children's one is a mood one, so it changes colors, where the teen one is more of an aluminum style bottle that you see a lot of teens carry today. So they really crafted unique bags based off of age demographics. And then the backpacks are going to be just an unbranded regular backpack. A lot of children that come into placement don't have a bag. So it was an opportunity to do that. And then our public health team created these incredible flyers. They called them our Good Vibes bags that talked about the importance of taking care of yourself even amid challenging situations. So.
And how many of these have you given out, and how many are we?
So
what are the resources we have to continue to do?
Well, it's a pilot project that we're utilizing existing grant funds from 2023. So those are still coming in. So we ordered 100 bags for teens and 100 bags for adolescents, and we're going to gauge their utilization and results. And then we have this mental health screening grant in 2024, but we are going to pilot it with our 2023 funds as a way to utilize those effectively and creatively. And then we're going to gauge the needs of what we're going to be able to do with our 2024 funds as they come in.
Thank you.
Is that what the grant fund is from where?
It's our Children's Mental Health Screening Grant. We're able to use health outreach or mental health outreach and promotion as one of the brass codes within that grant project. So when we realized that we had some opportunities with those funds, we figured let's use it in a creative fashion. So.
Commissioner Anderson.
Okay, so those bags, were they created as a result of, like, sometimes these kids, when they're taken out of the home, they can only leave with what they're wearing, right?
Yeah.
And is this one of the what you came up with then, or how?
Yeah, it was just kind of created as like, yes, there's a need that we don't often get to meet, but also it's an opportunity to give them something that's theirs that supports them with fidgets and journals and different things. So it's kind of a dual purpose opportunity.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So it was just a highlight of a fun collaboration to watch it kind of fruition of the two teams working together.
Thank you.
Yeah. So through public health, I wanted to highlight our WIC program, our Women, Infants, and Children. On a monthly basis, we serve approximately 1,600 participants. And this past year, they had their recent survey with the Minnesota Department of Health, and that they had a very glowing remarks. It was very rewarding to sit in on that closure to hear the success that the team had. And one of the things that they highlighted was the equitable experiences and having bilingual books in the lobby and opportunities for children of any language to have appropriate resources. I also wanted to highlight some of our vaccinations. Briefly, just highlight a partnership that, our community health supervisor, Denise Kregenbring, heard of a need in our community around school time of a elevated number of children that needed school vaccinations that nobody in our community knew existed. So typically there'll be around 30, and this year there was 120 children that needed vaccinations. So really pulling together with our community partners to make these vaccinations possible to prevent children from not being able to go to school and then entering our human services side of our world. Additionally, our Healthy Housing Grant that concluded this year, but is now reopened for opportunity for grant approval. So we are going to be reapplying for that grant, which is also through the Minnesota Department of Health and addresses home safety and environmental hazards in our neighbors' homes. And then finally, under public health, just to make you aware that over the next year, Minnesota has adopted the National Framework for Public Health. And this framework outlines foundational responsibilities of the governmental health system and provides places for Minnesota's public health system to work anywhere, and that where you live and your zip code should not determine the access to public health services. So it'll provide some additional framework and structure to public health work moving forward. Again, a presentation I'll come back in the future with more detail on. You have a question, Commissioner Burke?
Yes, just going back to the WIC people, serving 1,600 people. In the past, it was an issue of space. Yeah, is it still an issue of space? Or how are you dealing with?
I know that over COVID, they took the opportunity to refashion space and had the opportunity to
working
redo.
out?
It's beautiful. It's beautifully working out. It's created some opportunities. We do, through that survey, have a need to pivot some structure from our check-in to create some more privacy. So there's a few opportunities to just kind of pivot what we do, which I believe will naturally happen over our building plans and how we look at our spaces and make sure that the work that is being done is private or increased privacy was one of their spaces. So there, as far as the actual footprint for the program, at this point, I'm not aware of any tight shoulders. But as we continue to grow the program, that can change.
So just follow up on that. Any feeling or idea, you mentioned 1,600 people a month. Do you see the trend is going up or down, or how's it been going?
Currently,
What
it's
do you
been
see for the
stable.
future?
We're back to in-person. Over COVID, we were able to do some virtual and phone visits, and we were one of the counties that went back to in-person faster than some of our counterparts. But we've been seeing a stable increase. We would like to increase that over time and make targets of serving more individuals, because I think there's a lot more of our neighbors that we could be serving. They just simply either don't think it's for them or don't realize that they could. So we're trying to find inroads of making sure that if we're seeing someone on one portion of our services, let's make sure they're connected to our others. So those are some of our internal processes to make sure that, so for say, like an individual that's in our human services structure is aware of our WIC program and warm handoff to the program as well. So,
Okay, thank you.
Yep. All right. I have just a few slides left, but I wanted to highlight some of our economic assistance programs because it's no secret that this unwinding process for our medical assistance continues to be an ever-changing landscape, and the instruction we get sometimes changes daily, and the work that we do sometimes needs to change 2 months later, and we have to go back and do it again. So I just wanted to make you aware of the extensive challenges and the incredible work that is being put in by our team members, our eligibility workers, to ensure that our families have the access to the health care and supports that they need through this process. In 2022, we had 31% of Candiota County residents covered by a subsidized healthcare program, and 10% of our county is participating in our supplemental nutrition assistance program.
How do those numbers compare with the state? Do you know?
I don't know offhand, but I'd be happy to get back to you with that.
That would be another report, right?
Okay, yeah. I'll make sure to include that with our annual report coming forward in next year. Is that fair? All right, and then another piece that I thought was interesting while going through our data that I thought would be interesting to share with you today is our translation trends. So it's important to know that this does not account for insurance minutes that are utilized, but the minutes that we help support as a county. We serve approximately 48.5 hours per month in translation needs, and our most utilized languages are Spanish, Somali, and Karen. But what you'd notice, I guess when I thought of this, I would have thought that one or two would be higher than the other, but to see an almost third split was very eye-opening for me. We do have a few, you'll see a lighter small pie. That would include our Ukrainian, Turkish, Korean, Chinese, Burmese, and then our other, but it doesn't take up much of the pie at all for that slice. So I just thought that was really interesting to see the language landscape of our community, and the needs that we're seeing from an interpretation style. So earlier today, you approved our contract for one of our translation partners, and through that contract discussion, we discussed opportunities to engage in further dialogue as to how we can utilize our partners to help make sure that our front door is more equitable. Earlier, at an earlier meeting, you chose to help invest in our translation needs from a human services front door landscape through your ARPA funds. So we're excited to engage partners in the community to make sure that when we deploy those, it's in an equitable fashion and in a way that is culturally responsive.
Notice Swedish and Norwegian didn't even move the needle on that.
It didn't. So left as a universal language. So, and then finally, I wanted to close with one project that we've been working on is our staff needs assessment. So we went through a staff survey to see what training our staff was looking for in the 2024 year and things that would help them feel more competent, equipped, and confident in the work that they do. I apologize, on the screen, my letters moved, but we're kind of dubbing this our SEED program. So our skill enhancement and our employee development, and really taking the information from our team members about what they want to help them do their jobs better. And as you can see, as it leads back to our translations needs, they want to continue to grow in their cultural diversity and their cultural education. They want to continue to grow in how can future technology improve and enhance the work that we're doing. How can we help negotiate better during our conversations, manage our own performance, grow as leaders within our department, and continue to just grow as individuals overall. So we're excited to share, again, I'll come back at a future date to lay out more of what the SEED program will look like in 2024, but it is really staff-driven, working with our partners for low and no-cost educational opportunities. Commissioner Anderson had the opportunity to go around exhibitor tables with me and say, hey, could you help provide us with an education? Because a lot of times individual or organizations will provide educational opportunities for staff at low or no cost and create a great system there. So excited to watch that again take root, no pun intended, in 2024.
Oh, good one.
So as you can see, we've done a lot, we continue to do a lot, and what's next going forward and how we'd like to continue to engage with the five of you is to look at how do we create more structured opportunities for engagement. There's a lot of work that's being done that isn't appropriate to stand at the platform, and there's so we'd love to find a way, as our leadership team had discussed, how do we bring you into the conversation? And that might look like a committee, that might look like work groups, but we really want to find a time to sit and engage you in this conversation and the needs and opportunities and gaps that exist within our community. We'd like, if you have educational opportunities that you'd want to come and talk about from our staff needs, we'd welcome that too. But we really look forward about how we can continue to meet the needs of our community in new and innovative ways.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any closing comments or questions for Ms. Khan?
Thank you, good
Commissioner
update.
Byrd.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Commissioner Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Caroline, great report. Thank you so much. It looks like you hit the ground running and haven't stopped since. Thank you so much for all of your work for Candiota County, and thank you to all of your staff and your supervisors. They truly are shining stars here at our county, as are all of our staff.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I just get the opportunity to tell you about their great work. So I'm grateful for that. But they're truly, like you said, the stars of the work that's being done. So it's been an incredible team to to join and be a part of. So I
Thank you.
appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you and happy holidays. And we're going to take a 5-minute break, and if you're not back in your seats, we're going to start without you.
Thank you.
We'll reconvene the Kaneohe County Board of Commissioners. Up next is the petition to repurchase tax forfeited property. Michelle?
Good morning, Michelle Hansen from the Auditor Treasurer's Office. Mr. Chair, members of the board, I'm here to present a request by the owner of a property requesting to repurchase a tax forfeited property. You received in your board packet information, a little bit of information about the property as well as an email with the gentleman's letter of request. Just for a little bit of background on this property was tax forfeited. There are taxes owing from 2019 through 2023. The redemption period expired as of the end of July of this year. And the gentleman that's living in the property came into our office in September and requested what could be done. So the sheet that you received in your board packet was an outline that I had done up for him, basically outlining his options. We gave him a timeline based on an arbitrary proposed sale date for the tax forfeited properties of April 1st. And so that is what has driven me here today and his petition. I'm not sure what more you need from me as far as background, or if you have questions regarding this.
So the total owed is $32,109.95.
That was as of September, yes. Yes, and that includes taxes and special assessments. I do know that there was a structure that was removed by the city of Wilmer. I believe it was a garage or some sort of an outbuilding that was a hazard. So it was removed by them, and that represents just over $13,000 of that cost. So that is why the tax amount is high.
Do you know Mr. Chair?
Go ahead.
Yes. Do you know offhand with the penalties, how much the penalties fees added up over that time? I mean, that's part of the whole $32,029, right? Or $32,109.
Yeah, I don't have the breakdown in front of me, other than the tax portion, including that through 2022 was over 28,000.
Okay. Okay.
2023 doesn't become technically delinquent until January 2nd. So it's past due.
Does staff have a recommendation?
Our recommendation is that the party be allowed to repurchase the property. This is typically done on a contract for deed type of situation. Per statute, it's a 10-year repayment plan. At the time of purchase, 1/10 plus the applicable fees as broken down on that sheet is what's due. However, as part of the request, he has requested a 6-month extension on that. So that would be a topic of discussion for you.
And so so what I'm thinking, commissioners, is what we have all discovered in the last year or so with the Hennepin County case and the U.S. Supreme Court is whatever we end up doing with this is probably not going to be the end of it. And so in my opinion, if we could figure out a way to allow that person to redeem this property, it'd be in the best interest of everybody. However, I do believe we need to see some movement on it. And so is there an expectation that will 6 months make a difference?
In his letter of request, that's what he has requested. That he have a 6-month extension, and then he's hoping to be able to proceed with the payments and so forth as laid out in the outline.
And if he is unable to do that, then we just proceed with forfeiture and the sheriff's sale.
That's my understanding, yes, that we would terminate that contract for deed if he defaults it. Shane maybe could speak to some legalities on that if you know anything further as far as what would happen.
Yeah, my recommendation would go along with his request for the 6-month extension and push this down. You already noticed the big change in the landscape on tax forfeitures was the U.S. Supreme Court case. I'll just point out, just by way of example, the proposed sale date is April 1st.
Less than 6 months.
which could create problems, because after that case came down, then this request came into the auditor's office, and then after that, there's pending litigation involving 20 counties in the state, and likely the entire statute is going to be changed this legislative session. And even questions such as whether the special assessments will be included in what's owed. So the purchase agreement may include an amount that's not there. Certainly the process could change altogether, and you don't want to have that popping up right in doing a foreclosure when they could be changing the whole landscape. And this would also give the heir that additional time. So we can see 6 months takes us to the end of the legislative session. And then you'll be able to see where he's at and what the new law requires.
And my layman's understanding of the Supreme Court response is that we have to give them the money, and we can't necessarily keep the money that we spent to mitigate the property, so the city might be out of that money. Should we have to sell it and pay them the difference? So
In a typical tax forfeited sale, an auction situation, the appraised value is typically the property tax amount. If there are special assessments that are levied against the property, a lot of times the cities or township, whatever the case may be, will remove those, and then they have that right to reserve the right to reassess those once it's repurchased. So.
Commissioner Berg.
Mr. Chair, thank you very much. I had a couple questions. So first off, I feel a little uncomfortable just a few days before Christmas evicting anybody. But that's not a joke neither. It is a serious thing that this person's in a serious position. My question is, though, can we adjust this, or could we look at, my concern is we say, okay, he wants to wait another 6 months, and not knowing where he's at, but we're going to also at the same time look at other options as we move forward. So could we change this payment system, say in 3 months, that we expect, instead of that $3,000 in 6 months he's got to pay, that he would pay X amount of money in 3 months. So we kind of know that he's really working towards this, and that that's a good way to go.
How long?
So my thought is, can we say of the $3,200, $1,500 be, and the first $1,500 be due by April 1st, for example?
Sure, I guess that would be a question maybe Shane might be able to answer better than I could.
I know it may be uncomfortable to just be in a holding pattern, but I think that's where we have to be.
Okay.
It's, the whole landscape will change. The statute now requires, at least not less than 1/10.
Okay.
So we couldn't structure it lower, and we don't even know what 1/10 will be, because they could adjust that based on the special assessments or other things. That was, while you were having the board meeting last time around, I was at my conference, and that was one of the topics was this case and the effect, and they were taking through a potential proposed legislative fix, and certainly there's just more questions than answers on what goes into all this. So, and the delay only is to the benefit of the heir who could redeem it, which is kind of in line with the spirit of the Supreme Court decision, allowing that person to recoup the tax.
And how long has it been in arrears?
2019, the taxes for 2019 and through the current year are owing.
In all due respect to Commissioner Berg's concerns, from 2019, I don't think another 6 months is going to, put a dent in anything for the county. And so I guess.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
So that initial down payment, if he's requesting 6 months, do we have to put a date then when it has to be paid by, or how do we deal with that?
Yeah, I guess that would.
I guess in a sense, I'd say just table the issue now, and then when when staff has interacted with this individual and we've seen what the new law is, then they can be brought back to the board.
So if we, as a point of order here, so if we would do it by tabling, we would table it to a time uncertain?
Yeah,
And, okay,
yeah, just sit there.
Okay.
And you can recall it at any point.
Well, we're looking at each other. I think we have the same idea. Go ahead.
Commissioner Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm a little uncomfortable not giving the applicant some sort of certainty in regards as to how his request is going to be handled. And I guess and maybe I'm not understanding if that would, how that would be impacted one way or the other. If we were to table this, I tend to concur with the chair that this is something that we likely should move on now, in my opinion.
Mr. Chair.
But I want to respond to that first. I don't think, it wasn't my thought that we move on it now, that we make a decision now. I'm more inclined to go with the county attorney and table it to a time uncertain. It seems like if we grant his request of 6 months, and 6 months goes by and he hasn't acted on it in an appropriate fashion, then staff will be back to us saying that this is, it hasn't happened, and now we take the action.
Well, if I may.
Yes.
If nothing happens in 6 months, then we're still in a holding pattern because we're still waiting for a decision from the legislature on how they're going to address this anyway. There's really nothing that we could be doing with this property until that legislation is passed and vetted. In all likelihood, there will be challenges to the new legislation. And so I would prefer to move on this today if we can find a way to do so. And I tend to agree with the staff recommendation.
So are you making a motion?
I will make that motion to accept the recommendation of staff to allow this process for the owner to repurchase the property.
Wasn't there a time consideration in there?
As presented by staff.
Okay. So there's a motion to accept staff's recommendation to allow the petitioner to purchase the property as outlined in the time frame and the amount due. Do I hear a second?
I'll second it for discussion.
Commissioner Berg seconds. Okay, you
Yeah,
have a comment or question?
Well, I'm also hearing our county attorneys recommending that we table this, and I feel that we have to respect that. But indefinitely, I just really struggle indefinitely, just a report back to the board. When does the legislative session end this year?
May.
May 1st, middle May?
Middle
Middle May.
middle of May.
Okay, so if we table it, could we put it back on the agenda, the second board meeting in May? To have an update, just to talk about it? I mean, to hear, the board wants to hear. I just don't want it to be just left out there.
The reason I say to the time uncertain is because, as Attorney Baker said, is that, even though the legislature is done, we don't know if they come up with a solution and when that goes into effect. A lot of times it's July 1st for new legislation or January 1st. So we might end up, we can kick the can down the road again, even if
exactly.
if you pick June or May as the time or the 6 months.
Well, what I'm saying, an update and a discussion and have it on the agenda, so we'll keep addressing this.
Oh, my question, Mr. Chair. What would change in those 6 months? I mean, what would change on these numbers if we
Penalty
waited?
and interest does, the interest mostly.
Okay, so that's that first
Continues to
number, like
accrue.
the payment 2, like 6,000, payment 3, 5,000. That's the interest part there, or?
Those would be the annual installments.
Okay.
So the 1/10 plus the interest.
Okay.
And then as part of a repayment process on a contract for deed situation such as this,
Okay.
they are required to pay the 1/10 plus interest, as well as keeping the current taxes current.
Okay.
As well. So that's the additions there to the amounts for each year. So,
Okay.
And I might add, the other thing that might change, Commissioner Anderson, is the petitioner is able to fulfill his desire to repurchase and start making these payments.
Okay.
So we have a motion and a second. Mary, could you repeat? Is it to delay it, accept staff recommendation?
To accept the recommendation of staff to allow the petition to repurchase the tax the property to proceed.
But wasn't there a time factor in that? Michelle, no?
No, not the motion.
Okay. No, but in your staff recommendation.
yeah, he was requesting the additional 6 months.
Yeah. So is that part of the motion?
Well, I guess I'm a little,
Hang on 1 second, I want to clear up the motion.
My motion was to accept the recommendation of staff, which would,
So the
I
6 months
believe,
would be in there.
would include the 6-month request.
And is that how you understood that as the seconder?
Yes,
Okay,
but it was for discussion, yes.
okay. So Commissioner Dale Anderson.
well, I guess I'm a little confused. I totally understand where Steve is going with this, and I completely understand where Mr. Baker is going with this. And I'm trying to figure out what would be the best thing to do, because both things are important. I think it's important that we let this person know that he has a chance to buy this back. But yet I also agree with Mr. Baker that maybe we should wait with this to do that. So I guess I'm curious how we can do both them things.
So as I understand it, Commissioner Anderson, if the petitioner is able to follow through on it, it becomes moot, because now he has entered into a contract with the county to purchase the property back, and so we don't have to worry about what happens at the Supreme Court or Minnesota Legislature. It's if he doesn't where we have to deal with it.
Right, and just to clarify, yeah, my recommendation is not to shut him out of repurchasing. I think that's where the statute, at least as it currently exists, that's what's envisioned, and I'm sure that's the new legislation will grant those options. The basic change probably will be that the title will vest in the government way later in the process, after all these redemption periods and opportunities to heirs and the property owner have gone through and they haven't followed through.
Commissioner Berg.
I find it very difficult to disagree with the Candido County attorney at this point. But I really think I'd like to hear, or indefinite somehow, when you table things indefinitely so they die and you don't deal with it. And, hopefully it's not stopping this person, and you can encourage them to follow through and take care of it before that. But I just like to have something on the calendar, we have an update.
No, you could make it indefinite. You could just say first meeting in June, and
Yeah, well, whatever 6 months is,
which is roughly that.
roughly that, yeah. So, all right, any further discussion? All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign. Motion carries.
Oh,
Well, I'm sorry.
I opposed. yeah.
Okay. So, and the chair voted aye, so motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. Happy holidays. Yes, you too. All right, we are contract time. Connie.
Good morning. Connie Mort, Human Resources Director for Candy, Ohio County. I'm coming before you today with the proposal to accept some negotiated contracts with both our AFSCME union representation and our LELS, or law enforcement representation as well. I believe the agenda does have the contracts listed, approving 4 union contracts, and I would like to as Commissioner Baker is, or Commissioner Baker, I'm sorry.
We're all
Giving,
county board
I'm
members.
giving you a promotion as well.
Got 7 commissioners now instead of 5.
Oh, excuse me, Administrator Baker. Looking to just take the one contract off, which is the corrections contract. That has not been voted on, has not been ratified by their group. So we will remove that one from consideration today. So going forward, removing that one, the next one then would be for the deputies under law enforcement. How would you like me to proceed with presenting these contracts? Do you want to go through the contracts, basically change by change, reviewing them, and then voting on them separately?
Well, Commissioner Gardner and I were part of the negotiations, so personally, I'm comfortable not going through them all, but I do understand that 3 of them just had the packets presented to them on Thursday of last week, so.
Yep.
I'll leave it up to them.
Yeah. Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Yes, my concern, if you can just highlight the increase, that financial increases along the lines, along the actual steps they would get or how much they want for a COLA. Also, I'd like to just, any other agreements that dealt with that would be indirectly financial, additional time off that we haven't done or voted on before. And then also, if you have that information, what would be the additional costs that we're looking at for each contractor overall?
Okay.
Can I ask that we forget about extra $5 for a gun belt or those kind of things?
I'm just talking
Deal with the things that
large numbers of it, yeah.
Right.
Thank
You
you.
know, yes.
Right. As you probably remember, we had looked at increasing the salary structure, our non-union salary structure earlier this year. And when we did that, we did an additional 5% on that salary structure. And we did apply it to the county employees as a whole. And if you remember correctly, I think that those dollar amounts were also brought forward to the board at that time. I don't have them split out today per contract, but we did have them across the county as a whole.
And that was the change we made in July that goes into effect January 1st.
That is correct. That is correct.
And also, Mr. Chair, may I?
Yes.
Also, at that time, we changed the schedule too, as
We
well.
did.
And there was everybody basically got another step as well.
Well,
Pretty much. Or-
Yes, somewhat. What we did is we took the 15-step salary structure and we condensed it to 10 steps. So literally anyone who was step 10 to 15 would go to that step 10. And there would have been a significant increase for some of those folks as well. Everyone else that was, whatever their step was, is they would go to that step on the 10-step scale. Yes.
But I think Commissioner Berg is talking about what we did last July affecting,
Yeah, that's
was there
it.
some step changes then that took place then?
There
A
was.
certain- Okay.
Right. That was a different project, if you will. That was our market study. So the changed salary structure from the step 15 to the step 10, and also the 5% increase on the structure overall, was a product of that market survey. Where we were trying to be more competitive overall throughout other counties, and especially in some particular positions, law enforcement being one of them, where we needed to be more competitive with surrounding counties in order to attract all county employees from either different counties or from other avenues of life as well. So that was what we had done with that market survey, and it was part of that. The other piece of the market survey, if you remember, there were several classifications or several jobs that were reclassified by our DDA, actually, is who did it, David Drowns and Associates. So we had contracted with them to look at a number of different positions that we felt had changed significantly since 2018, when our comparable worth study was done throughout the county. So we did not take all county positions and reclassify them or have them looked at, but we did take a number of them. markedly. Glacial Lakes was, their positions overall were done. There was some positions that were done eligibility or financial services, child support. We looked at a number of different positions that were changed.
But if I may, Connie, within the contract, what we're asking for approval today, that doesn't fall within this.
That's
So-
what I'm, yes.
Yeah, so the
It's so-
reclassifications that you're asking, that wages are really non-negotiable. So that what we talk about within negotiations is COLA, or I should say wage adjustment, is that they're moving towards instead of COLA.
Right.
Wage adjustments. That's something that we talk within negotiations. That, what Connie was referring to, all those reclassifications, that was done back in June. And then when we redid the wage table, that was done in August, or, that first meeting in September. So that's all outside of contract negotiations.
Right.
Yes, okay, and I'm just, but on the other hand, I think it's important to know that, because the staff really appreciated it, and I'm really glad we did those at that time.
Right.
Really glad. So we're at how much percent that we already, for staff costs, and they seem very happy with that, before we're going into negotiations. So we're looking at a 7 to 8% increase, plus the healthcare that we approved prior to negotiations, right?
Well, we're looking at 5% prior to negotiations, the 5% increase as part of the project that we were just talking about that happened, earlier this year and was approved earlier this year, that salary structure. So we looked at a 5% overall on that salary structure, took the 15 steps and condensed them into 10 steps so that we got our employees further into the salary structure more quickly. And that is, again, a competitive piece for hiring and also retention. Then the other piece of that too, yes, you are very much correct with that. We did also some premium resets as well, and those were all voted on as well earlier this year. So all of those things being said, so that was a different project. The market survey was a different project, and that was the product of that. So now that salary structure was meant to become effective January 1. Now, that was a start for our negotiations piece. That's what we went into negotiations with.
And I'm just framing that because I want to frame that for the board as well. But it's a separate item, but it's still a salary cost benefits to our employees, what we want to do, and we wanted to do that. But it all adds up to the budget, and it's got to be sustainable, because a big portion of that's going to go back on the levy. And it probably did this year, and possibly even more than next year. So I'm interested, so I just want to frame it that we have that much committed already in salary increases and benefits to our staff that we believe strongly in, and we passed that. Yes. Now I want to talk about then, how do you see the costs that you have built in on this, far as the COLAs added to that, as well as, I want to look at the big picture of this, because it's got to be sustainable and from the taxpayer's point of view. And then also the impact of cost, as far as, additional vacation time, additional holidays, and what impact that would have. So enough said for me. So please,
Right.
So you asked, what do you want to hear? And that's what I really would like to hear.
Okay. I
don't mean to give you a hard time. But
No, that's fine.
But
That's
I
fine.
haven't been part of this,
Right.
and I just seen that we approved a significant amount in salary increases, and I'm glad we did, and the staff are very happy. But I'm interested, how much more are we going to be adding if
Okay.
we
Well, and we can
approve
talk,
this?
right, and we can talk about what we've negotiated into these particular contracts that I bring before you today. Again, I have 3 contracts that we've come to an agreement with that we want to bring to you, that have been ratified by their membership on the 3 different contracts. And of course, your approval is the last step in those contract negotiations. So if we may, we can probably go through these contracts very quickly. There's not a lot of changes in them, because I believe that the negotiations were pretty standard. We've got some good contracts, we've got a decent handbook where, that will address things that aren't in the contract. So barring any other discussion, you know, if we can just go review these and then we'll have more discussion after.
Okay.
All right, thank you. Of course, the purpose of the agreement under Article 1, we would want to do a 3-year contract again, as we have historically. That would be from January 1 of 2024 to December 31st of 2026.
Just to be clear for everybody, we're on law enforcement, correct?
That is correct. We are under the deputy contract.
Okay.
And then under immediate family, we changed, throughout the county, we changed the definition for immediate family. And the reason that we did that was it would be more encompassing and just more inclusive as a society as a whole in today's world. So if we're looking at that. And that was basically including step adoptive relationships as well.
Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
So that's basically to be in compliance with state statutes, right? That was passed last time around or not?
No, we'll talk about that
Okay,
during
that's
handbook.
coming up. Okay, all right, okay. All right.
That is going to be a totally different set of
Okay, I thought maybe it was
circumstances,
getting
but
in
yes.
line with that.
Yeah,
Okay.
no, this was a negotiated piece, and where this immediate family will come into play a lot is on our regular sick time and then also on our bereavement leave.
Okay.
It's the big piece on bereavement leave.
Okay.
Okay. And the next big thing that we're looking at then is under Article 10, vacation time. Throughout the county, we were able to take a look at this vacation schedule. Now, up until,
Article 10? Mine says sick leave under Article 10.
Are you on,
I think I'm on law enforcement, or did I fast forward too much?
but you're not.
Mine says vacation time.
okay, we're under Local 22,
The first one that's attached, or the second one?
the second one. The correctional officers were the first one.
I am on the wrong one.
Yep. Take that one, we took the correctional offers out. And I think that's Local 23, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep, thank you.
Okay, perfect, we're on Local 22.
Okay.
All right, so under Article 10, vacation time.
I gotta go down. Okay.
Give us a minute here to get.
Yep, absolutely.
Maybe I should go, or I'll do it this way.
I wish.
There we go.
No, keep going.
You're gonna do that for us next year?
So we should be on law enforcement
Deputies.
Yep.
deputies.
Local number 22 would be our deputies.
Okay.
Okay,
You there, Commissioner?
I
Evans,
am,
or-
yes, there we go.
okay. All right, so we are under, again, Article 10, vacation time. For several years, for several negotiations, our Health and Human Services Department has had a vacation schedule that has differed from the rest of the county. The rest of the county, including our non-union employees, was on a vacation schedule. It was a little confusing, and it kind of got to the point where, between 1 and 3 years, well, is it the third year or is it just 1 and 2? So we always were having that discussion. So Human Services, Health and Human Services, both Human Services and Public Health, had the vacation time schedule that you see listed in red in this particular contract. So basically, our accrual for vacation time goes up every year and caps then at year 20 of service. So we're looking at, again, still an accrual of just a max accrual of 264 hours. And that was our old maximum accrual under our old policy. This is just a difference in the way that the accrual is done. And so with each one of our contracts, this was one of the things that came into negotiations to match those accruals with Health and Human Services. And so that's what we're looking at for the other contracts, and also what, later on in my presentation, if we do a handbook, we would be looking at for non-union as well. Again, when I first came to Candy, Ojai County, we had 6 different salary structures, 5 or 6 different salary structures. We were able to combine those into one salary structure for all of our employees. This is going in that same direction where we can be more equitable between contracts and between our contract employees and also, or not our contract, our union employees and our non-union employees. And that is our goal.
inequitable, and the other piece is that we are one county. And so it's in that pattern of breaking some silos down. It doesn't matter which department you fall under, you still get that same accrual schedule. And that's something that we talked about going into negotiations is how do we kind of get everything under this one umbrella? And like Connie mentioned, administratively, how do we make it more seamlessly and efficient for the staff that input and enter this information into our system that had all these different wage tables and accrual schedules, things like that. It's just going more towards one.
And it can make it more attractive for movement within the county. You know, if you're coming from one area of the county and are transferring to another area of the county, this makes it a little bit more seamless and equitable and attractive, to be honest. You know, I've had some employees that have moved from human services into our COB county office building, which Caroline told me I needed to tell her what that meant, into those positions, and those were non-union positions. So this would be a more seamless transition for those employees and just make movement a little easier on them and a little more equitable.
Do you have a question, Commissioner Burke?
Just to be clear, you're talking about accrual, but this scale, even though you're trying to make the scales the same, this is increasing, it looks to me like it's increasing the amount of vacation time a person would get sooner.
Yes.
And that creates a financial impact on our budget. And we're doing it with 400 and some people.
Yeah, you know what?
Everybody's getting more vacation time until they reach the max. And once they all reach the max, then the max is the same, of course. But we're speeding this table up for the majority of the people, right? What you're saying?
Yes and no. I mean, there's some people that, you know, would be going forward, you know, if let's just say, okay, take me for example. I'm with the county, it'll be 10 years in March. So my accrual would have been in that 7 through 11 time period. So I'll still be in that because, you know, I'll be on now on year 9. So I'll be on year 9 with this particular schedule. And so that might make a difference for me, yes, to have accrued vacation time. However, you know, again, the accrual is going to stay the same at 264 hours. So yes, while the accrual might be quicker, you're still going to have that cap on the vacation accrual as well. But I do understand what you're saying, Commissioner Burke.
So I don't know if this is helpful or not, but I think what Commissioner Berg is looking for, probably all of us as commissioners, is the fiscal notes to all of these contracts and moves that we made last June and ESST time and paid family leave, which you probably aren't prepared today to.
You know, and we did talk about the fiscal impact on the salary structure back when it was presented and approved, you know, in the September meetings. And I could get those dollar amounts for you. I think that they were included in the board packets as dollar amounts. And I don't want to spew a number.
No,
because
and
that would be
probably a better question for the auditor than it is for you.
Right, and we did a rough estimate on what the differences would be. And, you know, we do have those, you know, and were presented at the time that we did the salary structure. I just hesitate to throw out a number that's not going to be correct.
So I might suggest that maybe we have a work session or something where we can maybe get into these weeds a little bit more to answer the kind of questions that you're asking. For today, we've got 3 contracts that basically are tweaking what we've.
Right. You know, there probably will be some impact with the vacation structure and everything. And when we talk about ESST, which we'll talk about a little bit later, we'll see that, you know, maybe those aren't going to be as fiscally impactful as you might think. Because it's going to be a different program, but we'll get into that a little bit later then. The other thing that we're looking at, and this was a change in the vacation schedule as well under 10.8, or not the schedule, excuse me. We used to have, we still do actually, but we used to have, if you had at least 120 hours of vacation accrued in your accrual, you could use 40, you had to use 40 consecutive days, and then you could cash 40 hours in, as long as you had 40 left in your vacation bank. What we're proposing is that at any time through the calendar year, if you get to 200 hours, which is only 64 short of your accrual total, that you would be able to just cash in 40 hours without taking those 40 consecutive. Because there's a lot of people that struggle to get those 5 consecutive days of vacation in order to cash in those 40. And so then we're looking at, the possibility of people rolling their vacation off. This would only be once a year, cash in 40, no strings attached, if you get to 200 hours. So if you're at 200 hours, you're probably in danger of getting up to that max accrual and having vacation roll off. If you know you're not going to be taking a 5-day vacation, a consecutive day vacation, then it would be really hard to avoid that. This gives employees once a year the opportunity to basically buy down their vacation accrual to a manageable amount. Again, would be over 200. Once their accrual was over 200 hours, they would be able to cash in 40. So we would take out that 40, 40, 40 that we called it, use 40 to get 40 cashed. We'd take that and replace it with this language.
Doesn't give you the iteration that 40, 40, 40 does, though, just.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Okay, the next thing that we have then is under holidays, 12.1. We now have 11 paid holidays, and that's per statute, including Juneteenth, which we already observed in 2023. So this is just a formality, making it part of the contract. Then we go all the way to 17.2. This is a shift differential, 17.1, we're to wages. And this is our cost of living increase. This is where we're talking about COLA. We were able to negotiate a 3%, and I know that in addition to the 5% overall that was approved earlier this year, 3% might seem like a lot. However, if you were looking at some of our other neighboring counties or counties of like size, those might be, this might be very competitive to where they were. So we're looking at a 3% per year, 3% for 2024, 25, and 26.
And I might add that the initial request by at least some of the bargaining units were considerably higher than that.
Yes, they were.
And because of the proactivity that this board engaged in and our staff engaged in, we were able to make the case for these more palatable wage adjustments.
Yes, absolutely. There was some asks that were considerably more, double than what we actually came up with. So that 3% is where we ended up negotiating for each cost of living increase for each of the years of the agreement. 17.2, employees should be paid it went from 90 cents an hour shift differential to 125. Again, we have 12-hour shifts in law enforcement. They go from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. And from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. This shift differential is their way of actually working with those types of structures. So that's in addition to their salary. It's 125 an hour shift differential, which again, to be competitive in law enforcement, we all know what the law enforcement field looks like right now. To be competitive with law enforcement, this was one of the things that we deemed that would be necessary. Again, this was a negotiated piece. Like Commissioner Gardner said, that we were able to negotiate a lower than ask just because of what we had done earlier in the year. The next thing is under 17.54. This is the C6 commander and the detective sergeant will receive a 4% increase to their regular salary step. The reason this is, and a little background on it, all of our law enforcement officers, our deputies, including our detectives, are classified as a B25, okay? So in order to differentiate between our detectives and our C6 members and our SWAT members, those people get a 4%, or the detectives get a 4% increase over that B25. That was negotiated back during the Compworth era because we just had no place else to go with those detectives. So in order to recognize that, that was where the 4% came. So these two individuals, and it just includes two sergeants, the C6 sergeant and the detective sergeant, would also be eligible for that 4% over their current classification. Does that make sense? All right, next thing is 17.6. This is an increase in their clothing allowance and just lists out all of the stuff that is approved and given to them or provided for them under, under statute as a law enforcement officer. We talked a little bit about, when they resign and retire and those types of things, just what would be returned, what wouldn't be returned. And the uniform allowance will be capped at $950. That's up $200. SWAT stayed the same. Next thing would be 17.11. Field training officers will go from 1 hour of pay to 2 hours of pay for each full shift. They are assigned as an FTO. I'm not sure if you're aware, but we did a lot of hiring in the last 3 years. And we've done a lot of hiring right out of skills. And FTOs are really mandatory. Well, they're mandatory, and they're also, they're invaluable when it comes to training our new officers, our new deputies. So we wanted to make sure that they were aware that was appreciated and recognized as well. So 2 hours now for each shift and 1 hour for less than a full shift in recognition of their FTO duties. Field training officer, sorry, I'm using acronyms, field training officer. And they are assigned to a new deputy for a good period of time. So that is a big part of their job. And that comes to the end of my contract for the deputies.
Thank you, Ms. Mort. So you've heard the presentation of the contract with law enforcement. How do you wish to proceed on this contract?
Mr. Chair, I will move on the acceptance of the contract with our LELS deputy.
Commissioner Gardner moves on the contract. Do I hear a second?
I'll second it.
Commissioner Dale Anderson seconds. Any discussion?
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead.
I wish to go over this again, so I'm clear on this. So looking at 2 years down the road from now, how much increase in salaries do we percentage have? And so, we go back, I just want to review that, and we already approved this. Was it 5 and 3, correct? And then we also made the scale shorter, which accelerated the faster the people are going to get to the top, which increases the cost during that time, and we don't have a number on that. And we're also doing the same thing with vacation time. We're accelerating that somewhat. And we don't have a dollar amount on that. So that's a percentage we don't know about 2 years from now. But then we had 5 and 3 back then, and we readjusted the scale, and that was, even though it varied from person to person, I wouldn't be too far off. Would I, if I said that was probably a 2% increase close on the average, or what?
For when we compress the scale?
Yeah.
Well, the steps became different.
Or the steps became
Yes,
different,
the steps became different because we went from step 1 to step 15.
That's steps, I'm talking about the steps, and that would
Right.
be 2%
Right.
roughly.
To some extent. Okay, so there's 45%. Let's just say there's 45% scale between step 1 and step 15. Now we've got 10 steps. Okay, so those, when it was step 15, we would go anywhere from like 3.21 between step 1 and 2 to we got lower as we went up in steps. So it was around 2.5% at the end of the scale. So when we did the compression, we went back to more about 4% in between each step, because we should still have 45%, but the 45% is now split between 10 steps as opposed to 15. And we tried to be as equitable as possible between those steps to be 4%.
Just give me a general guess what the increase would have been, so I can add up the numbers.
I would say between 1.5% and 2%.
1.5 and 2, okay. So we had 5, 3, 1.5 to 2% additional, right? And then we had the healthcare package involved, but that's just, I won't even add that up. So we're close to 9 to 10% increase.
Maybe 11.
You know, I mean,
on the low
Technically,
end.
there's a lot of employees that are going, that were on that step 15 that are going to be right where they were. You know, so you gotta discount those folks, you know, and then the rest of everybody that will be going, they're gonna stay on their own step.
Okay, so would it be safe saying 1%? Well, 0%. Let's just move on. I don't want to get hung up on this too much. Okay, we got 8% coming into what we're doing now. And then now we're looking at adding another 3% each year.
Yes.
For COLA.
For COLA.
For COLA,
For cost
on
of
top
living
of this.
adjustment.
Yeah.
Right.
So in 2 years, at the end of 2 years, there'll be another 9% increase in salaries that people will have.
Well, if you look at 2024 right now, if you look at the salary structure of 2024 that's included in your packet, that would include the 5% and the 3% for this year. Then you've got 3% for 2025 and 3% for 2026. So it's not really fair to say that we're going to have a 9% increase.
Well,
because
it
we're already
starts, I said,
including that.
and it'll be in that budget. That's what I'm trying to say. 2
Correct,
years
if
from
I
now.
may, Mr. Chair, I think
Yep.
if we're really going down a different rabbit hole, and I'd like us to, we talked about, what we're talking about today, what we're asking for approval is within this contract. What, the financial piece, absolutely, we can get you that information. The wages, we did go over that at the Truth and Taxation meeting, at the last meeting, those dollar amounts are in there. I think we can get that, but it's, in the grand scheme of the budget, going from $7.50 to $9.50, from 90 cents to $1.25 will be very minute, but we can still get, I'm not saying we won't get you that information, we still can. But I think focusing on the wages right now, when we're looking at the contracts, is a different lane. Maybe, if I may say, I understand where you're coming from, but I want to make sure that we're also cautious of the time and the people listening, to who are reviewing and listening on if these contracts are going to be approved or not.
Well,
So I'm going to let you respond to that.
Yeah.
yes, and I'm trying to look at it, yes, we want to
Yep.
address this issue now, but this issue really impacts the budget going down the road. And so we have to look at the whole big picture. And I'm just saying that at the big picture, and I'm all for supporting our staff and we're giving them great increases, but it looks to me like it's going to be a budget issue 1 to 2 years or 3 years from now, that we're looking at a very huge increase that we've never had, that I recall in any structure that we had in the county. This is one of the biggest, and from my point of view, and I could be totally wrong on that, but you start adding up, and then we're not even factored in the big budget, and that's why I'm so concerned about a 3% COLA, plus all these other, they look smaller, but they do add up to time off too, and that's paid. But I don't want to even calculate that and make it more confusing. But we add 3% for 3 years on top of the 9% at a minimum we did already. Plus, we haven't even mentioned that it's just an automatic thing. We all realize that. Everybody gets a step on their anniversary date. So every staff person this coming year is going to get another step increase. Am I correct on that?
Yes, I mean,
And
that
what
is,
percent
that
is
is
that
our,
step now?
it's right around 4%.
4%. So they'll get a 4% step on their anniversary date on top of that this year. Next year, they'll get another 4% that we don't even talk about. That's on top of that. And the year after that will be another 4%. That's another 12. You know, I mean,
Well,
how
really-
do we handle those?
Really, this isn't
Make
different.
sense?
It does, and I think this is, as I said earlier, I think this is a conversation we need to know looking forward, the impacts on our budget and our levies for 2025 and 2026, and what we're facing here. Clearly, we are facing that, but today, we're looking at these contracts, and I don't know, with all due respect, how we go back and renegotiate. Maybe you could get a 2% COLA instead of 3%, but that would be questionable. I just think we have to move forward with it. Commissioner Gardner had a.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think this is a line of questioning that could have been, that we could have asked about well prior to this meeting instead of having to spend the time pontificating on it today. Yes, these are large increases. Yes, we have done right by our staff. And the reason we did those things is that we were not competitive on retention and attraction. And what we really want to do is avoid the situation that previous boards have put us in by not addressing properly the increases that did not keep up with existing wage realities. This should not come as a surprise to anybody on this board that we are in a highly competitive environment for people to work at our county and to stay working at our county.
So let's go back to the contract and
Thank you.
discussion, and I will take a little umbrage, being I was on a previous board, and what took place in the previous was before COVID and before the Great Retirement, and so to say that previous boards were not paying attention, I think is a little.
And if I may respond to that, I'm not talking just over the last couple of years. I'm talking about probably the last 10 or 15, where we have had very small levy increases that did not, in most cases, keep up with inflation.
But our employees were.
This is a structural issue.
Our employees, and I go back 11 years, by the way, so I'm in that time frame. Our employees, we were competitive with other counties of our size and in our areas. So largely, this has taken place as a result of the Great Retirement. And every industry in the country and every workforce is facing this. So we have to face it, but we do have to deal with it. And so Commissioner Berg is correct in bringing it up, but let's focus on this contract and whether or not we can move forward on this contract. Commissioner Dale Anderson.
Well, I guess I get where you're coming from, Corky. I understand what you're saying, but we're really going up 1%. Our COLAs are only up 1% from what they were in the previous contract, which was 2%. So we're, instead of 2% for 3 years, we're doing 3%. And I guess that's how I feel we have to look at this. I understand what you're saying in the big picture. That's good to know, and we need to know that at some point in time. But for these contracts, you got to look at these numbers of the 1% and the just few other little things. There's not a huge thing in this part of it that is that much different. But I know what you're saying, Corky, in the big picture, but.
Mr. Chair.
One more comment, then I want to bring this to closure
Sure,
with a
that'd be
motion.
fine. Yes, it's
One way
getting
or
very
the
late. Yes, I really would encourage us to have some work sessions to look at the budget and go over this, because I look at this and I've had comments from other commissioners. You know, now Candido County's raised their salary, and this doesn't even include this. You know, now we have to do ours to catch up with you, you know, and I'm glad where we're at. I'm glad we're taking the lead, but I'm just really nervous as we go forward in this whole process of our budget and the sustainability of this, because it is huge.
I'm going to entertain a motion. I'm going to entertain a motion on the on the contract for law enforcement.
We already
have one.
So,
We do have it,
we need a
okay.
vote.
So then, I'm going to close discussion, and we thank you for all the comments and the concerns, and I'm not saying I disagree with them, but all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Moving on to our second contract that we would like to review today, and that is under law enforcement as well. And it is the Essential Sheriff's Unit Public Safety Telecommunicator. This is a title change from dispatch to Public Safety Telecommunicator. It's just it's an industry change, basically, on what telecommunicators are now called instead of dispatch. So Local 191 under law enforcement. Again, under Article 2, just the change in the name. Under 3.7, again, the immediate family, we're going to adopt the same language as we had with the other contract. This will become countywide if we so adopt those other contracts and handbook language. Then we are on to Article 9.3. And what we did there was that this was added language And if they're required to appear and testify in criminal court other than during an employee's regularly scheduled shift. And Minister Baker, this was also language that appears in the deputy's contract, correct? So this is as law enforcement, if they were to be called to court under a criminal matter as telecommunicators, as well as our deputies under law enforcement. So this is additional. Under Article 12, again, the vacation piece, this is exactly what was in our deputy's contract that was just discussed. The same accrual rates and the 264 max accrual. And under 12.7, that was just a correction from 252 to 264 because 264 is the accrual maximum. Under 12.8, again, that's that straight pay or cash out of the 40 hours if you're over 200 hours, replacing the 40-40-40 language. Under sick leave, 13.7, that actually has been deleted because what it talked about is the employee's own personal illness or their minor child. Employee must state what the leave is being taken for. I think that could be in violation of our HIPAA requirements as well. So that language was then taken out. Under the new 13.7, I guess it would be, employees may be allowed up to 3 working days with pay per incident as bereavement leave. So funeral leave will now be bereavement leave in the contracts. And what was struck was consideration shall be given by the department head to closeness of kin and distance of travel. It's really difficult to make those kinds of determinations. It's going to be 3 days given for each bereavement piece that falls under that immediate family definition. Yes.
Connie, can I ask a question?
Absolutely.
I'm just thinking about the bereavement and then not the sick and safe, but the paid family leave. Because they can take a lot more than that, can't they? And maybe I'm muddying the waters here, but.
Yeah, this falls under bereavement leave. So we give 3 days of paid time for bereavement leave. When we get to the emergency sick and safe time, we'll talk a little bit about who's going to be immediate family. But I don't believe that, and I might prove myself wrong when I get there, but I don't believe that we have a bereavement piece in that.
I'm thinking more of paid family leave.
Paid family leave, okay? So what we have right now is family medical leave, okay, under FMLA. Right now, it's unpaid. Okay, remember, the state legislature has approved paid family leave in the state of Minnesota. Fortunately for us today, it's not effective until January 1 of 2026. And so at that time, we will need to address that and also adopt those policies and procedures as well.
Thank you for that clarification.
You're welcome. We were happy not to have to do that with ESST.
Because there's a retirement coming in between here and that time, right?
You are correct. Timing is everything. Okay, so under 13.8, they're looking at having 24 additional hours of vacation. So in reality, that's 2 shifts for them. Everyone is getting, we have personal time or additional vacation time if you don't use the majority of your sick time during the year or use under 25% of your accrual. And so those personal days are reflective of what your actual shift is. And that's just what we're doing on this particular one. And then for severance, we left all the severances, the 15 and 1510, 2015, 2520. There was a lot of discussion around those, and those were all left. Employees shall be granted family and medical leave in accordance with all current state and federal laws. So that takes into account that ESST piece and also FMLA, which is still effective and will continue to be effective even after paid family leave becomes effective in the state of Minnesota. The federal program, which is FMLA, will still be effective. And that is under the unpaid family medical leave. Holidays, again, this is the holiday piece where Juneteenth was already adopted. That was again under section 14.1. Under Article 16, it's called general wage. This is 3%. And remember, Administrator Baker had talked about cost of living increases, and we're wanting to change the language to general wage adjustment instead of cost of living adjustment. General wage adjustment for each year of 3%. And then under 16.7 is just a clarification. This is if an employee is called in, so call-in pay will be $40 a shift instead of $40 a day, because again, you know, this particular group of employees and law enforcement as a whole live under shifts. So they're generally a 12-hour shift. The additional language under 16.7 there in blue is change of an employee's scheduled shift with less than 24 hours notice provided will receive $40 compensation. Change of shift includes an extension of shift and or requiring employees to report early for a scheduled shift. How this came about is that we were having, we needed to hire more correctional officers. We had had retirements, we had had promotions, and so this was part of being called into shift. So that was what was added to this particular contract. 16.10 is from 90 cents to the $1.25 shift differential, which we talked about in the other contract. So this is again an increase in the shift differential. And then just the duration of the contract under Article 22, going from January 1st of 2024 to December 31st of 2026. So the 3 years. And that is the end of the telecommunicators contract.
So you've heard the review of the contract from staff. I'd entertain a motion on accepting this contract.
Mr. Chair, I will so move forward the telecommunicators contract.
Commissioner Gardner moves on the contract. Do I hear a second?
I'll second it.
Commissioner Dale Anderson seconds. Any discussion? This is really splitting a hair, but a general wage adjustment, GWA, does not roll off the tongue nearly as easy as COLA, which it has taken me 10 years to figure out what a COLA is. So I sort of object to that change in terms, but I'm not going to fall on my sword over it.
Okay, yes, and I think it's just the cost of living adjustment language when it is connected to the GPD and you know, the consumer price index as well. So if you want to get technical.
All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign,
Aye.
and the chair votes aye, in favor.
Happy with that.
So in the interest of time, we got one more to do,
One more.
and maybe just stick to the highlights that are different from what
Okay.
we've already heard, if there is
Yeah,
any
I
difference.
think they're pretty similar. I'm fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
You want to make the vote on
I'll
that?
just kind of
I'm
zip through
fine.
these. Yep, immediate family, again, Juneteenth. The paying out 40 hours of vacation time, bereavement leave has been changed from funeral leave. There is an addition of personal leave in this particular contract, and again, this is the Human Services contract under AFSCME, Local 559. So Human Services. Personal leave, employees shall receive one paid personal leave per calendar year. All the rest of our employees get that, and they will get that personal day per year. Scheduled on-call shall be compensated at $60 a day, $90 if it's going to be on a holiday. And that compensation, again, is the 3% in all years. In the social worker, we had the child protection specialist, it's called a position differential, which was 90, I think it was 85 cents. It's now $1 per hour, and it will include our child protection lead workers, not our supervisors, but our lead workers, which there are two. That is the end of the Human Services contract.
Thank you. I'll entertain a motion to accept the Human Services contract with ASME.
Mr. Chair, I'll move on the contract with ASME Local 559-0006.
Commissioner Gardner moves on the contract. Do I hear a second?
I'll second it.
Commissioner Dale Anderson, second. Any discussion or questions? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you, Connie.
Okay?
Let's see. Are you doing the next one too?
I've got one more piece under that.
Oh, I thought we,
Under that item, and that was the non-union pay scale for 24, 25, and 26, which was included in your packet. Again, this has been a previous piece that's been before the board. This reflects the 5% increase previously approved earlier this year, plus the 3% general wage adjustment for 2024, 25, and 26.
And Connie, you're looking for board approval on these schedules?
Correct.
I'll so move.
Commissioner Gardner moves on the non-union, what was the non-union pay scale?
Yes, non-union pay scale for 24, 25, and 26.
24, 25, and 26. Do I hear a second?
I'll second it.
Commissioner Dale Anderson seconds. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign. Motion carries. All right, that brings us to our last scheduled item on the agenda, approving the Kaneohe County Employee Handbook.
Correct. And the employee handbook is, you know, it may look really daunting, but there's some things that have already been approved that, you know, have been struck from the handbook, so there's a lot of red in there. But if we just start under the definitions, under general workday, we're looking at changing. Currently, we've got two 20-minute breaks, a 20-minute morning and 20-minute afternoon, and a 45-minute lunch break, unpaid lunch break. So what we would like to do, our workday would still be, general workday would be 8 a.m. to 4:30 p.m., but we would like the flexibility for supervisors or department heads to assign 15-minute paid breaks by their supervisors instead of the 20. And I believe that we also had a change in our unpaid lunch break as well. So that would just be by approval by their supervisors if it works with their departments, and it would be at the discretion of the supervisors and department heads. But we would give them that latitude. Under immediate family, again, we're adopting the same language as per the contracts that were prior negotiated. Just some wording changes under that. Hours of work, again, this is what we're looking at for hours of work, was the difference between the 15-minute and the 20-minute paid breaks. And if there was going to be any difference between a 45-minute or a 1-hour lunch period. That's broke down in that under hours of work, section 10, Roman numeral 10. Roman numeral 11 is the vacation time, same accrual piece that we looked at and reviewed in the prior contracts. Under the same article, under 11, vacation time, they shall be able to receive, if you're separated by layoff, resignation, leave of absence, they're getting their unused vacation time up to 264 hours, and that remains basically the same. Talking about weather-related conditions, and employees who have the opportunity to remote work may do so. And we've added that language in there because remote work has become part of our culture since we adopted this handbook or last revised this handbook in 2020. Section G will be, again, this is going to be the cashing in 40 hours of vacation time as we did before with the 40-40-40. We're eliminating that 40-40-40 language and replacing it with cashing in 40 hours of vacation if you have at least 200 accrued as before. Under sick leave, you'll see that there's a lot of crossed out. We just took our entire sick leave policy out because here's what we're going to talk about: emergency sick and safe time. Okay, so we've talked a little bit about that. Earlier this year, the state legislature passed a statute that said that all employers in the state of Minnesota, if they have even one employee that works at least 80 hours during the year, will provide emergency sick and safe time at the rate of 1 hour to accrue for every 30 hours worked. Okay, so you could still use your own sick time policy if it was richer than that. So here's the difference between what our old sick time was and our new sick time. So we're still accruing at 3.7 hours per biweekly pay period, which is more than what we would be required to do under ESST. So we're okay there. So we're going to accrue, those employees are going to accrue up to 48 hours of ESST, which can be used for a lot broader range people that you can take sick time for, and then also for a broader range of reasons why you can take sick time. But it's going to be, contained to those 48 hours. And it will show up differently on their timesheet. It's a separate bucket of time on their timesheet and also on their paycheck stub per statute. That needs to be on there. So our regular sick time and our ESST time will both show up there, and they will have those accruals, and they will see what they've taken for each one of those. Okay, so it's actually two different pots of money. It doesn't really affect our sick time policy at all. It's just that 48 hours of that each year will go under ESST, and they're going to be able to take it on a much broader basis.
And that is up to a limit of 80? Do I remember?
The second year.
Yep.
So the first year, it accrues to 48 hours. Okay, so that'll be 2024. Then they can accrue up to 80 hours. If they don't use anything the first year, that 48 will roll over, and then they'll be able to accrue up to 80 hours of ESST. But that's the cap forever and ever. You can only have up to 80. Now, our sick time will continue to accrue. It'll just roll over that 80 hours, and it'll still go into the employees' sick time banks as it did before.
Thank you.
And it's unlimited. Our old sick time banks are unlimited as well. So that's the big differences between that. The other big difference is that, our seasonal employees, because again, all they have to do is work 80 hours in a year and you're going to accrue sick time. So that's going to be a little bit different for our seasonal employees. We have AIS, we have a lot of AIS employees. We have several employees that work in different departments in the county that are going to be temporary, that are temporary employees, and seasonal employees are eligible for this sick time as well. We're going to accrue it and not just award it 48 hours at the beginning, because under the statute, if we accrue it, we don't have to pay it out when they leave us. So at the end of the season, we would not be paying out that sick time to those employees. Now, if they were to come back to work within 180 days, then they would carry that forward. If not, it resets. So for the most of our seasonal employees, it will reset each year. That's probably more than you want to know. I'm sorry. I'm getting going on this whole thing. Okay. So again, it's an extended amount of people that they can do that for, and differences that they can do it for. And the one thing that I wanted to point out was one of the reasons that you could take ESST outside of our regular sick time is closure of the employee's workplace due to weather or public emergency, or closure of a family member's school or care facility. Under our prior policies, we needed to take vacation time for those. And this time we will. At this time, this ESST could be used for that under statute. The next thing we want to talk about, is there any questions under ESST? I know that was a high overview. Okay. Under section 13, holidays, we took out all full-time, again, Juneteenth is added. We took out section B, a full-time or regular part-time employee required to work on paid holidays shall receive another day off. Instead of that, they're getting paid either OT or comp time if they're called in to work on that holiday. And this is, again, remember our handbook, does not, if it's addressed in the contract is first. If it's not addressed and it is silent in the contract, then the handbook addresses it. But this is basically for our non-union employees. Again, we have bereavement leave, the same differences or the same corrections that we had in the other contracts. The difference between, on page 19 under letter C, all work performed in excess of a normal work week under the Fair Labor Standards Act will be overtime over 40 hours worked. Prior, we used to have holidays, sick, and vacation time would not be counted as time worked. We're changing that to have holidays, specific holidays that the county deems are holidays will be counted as time worked when you're calculating overtime over 40 hours a week. So if you had, let's say we're gonna have Monday off, and if, heaven forbid we get a snowstorm because we're not supposed to. But if we did, and then we had our staff called in on that, during the week or the prior to the holiday, but during that pay period, then they wouldn't, under our old policy, they wouldn't get OT for that. They wouldn't get overtime, or if they were called in during the holiday. This takes holiday and puts it into the computation for overtime. Vacation and sick, still not. So if you took 4 days of vacation time, well, it's not going to be computed under overtime in the handbook. We're looking at re-implementing the 4% difference between promotions, adding that and then to the next step. Resignation and retirement under, testing my knowledge of Roman numerals, but I think this is 17. Resignation, retirement. So supervisors and department heads are to give notice at least 30 calendar days prior to their resignation date or retirement date. And non-supervisory employees or non-exempt employees will be required to give a 2-week notice to resign in good standing. Prior to this, it had been 3 weeks, 30 days would have been great. But 3 weeks is just not, it's so awkward when we're looking at working with other companies, if they're leaving to go to a different county, or if they're leaving to go to a different company, or so on. We're requiring a 3-week notice, which is just not industry standard, so to speak. So we're looking at doing a 2-week for our hourly and a 30-day for our department heads and supervisory staff. Then the rest of this, we go all the way to page 25. Basically, it's just all county employees will provide accurate information who they are when representing the county, and will provide their name when needed. It's talking about wearing your county badge. It's just a difference in thought process there. The rest of this is a lot of standard statutes, discrimination, employee safety policies, etc. The next thing that we have a change on is page 34, and that is our alcohol and drug policy. And the whole thing has been struck because if you remember correctly, we rewrote this policy when the Minnesota legislature legalized cannabis. And so it was legalized as of August 1st. And so we had to rewrite our policy at that time to include the legislature's new legalization of cannabis. And so we did that, and that policy was rewritten and adopted back in September. So all it is striking our old policy and inputting our new policy, which has already been approved. The next thing that we have that would be a change in that particular, no, I think that's the same. There's no change in that one. So that and goes up to Family and Medical Leave Act. Again, we talked about that. Paid family medical leave will have to become part of this conversation and part of this handbook if it does continue to be approved through future legislative sessions, will be effective on January 1 of 2026. The next thing that we have difference is on page 53. Again, we talked about closing the county buildings, and we struck all of that language because it is now covered under ESST. The next thing is under page 54, the dress and personal appearance policy. Basically, we're looking at what your level of professionalism is while maintaining a public image and promoting dignity and respect for those we serve. So dressing for your day is pretty much what we're coming down to on this particular dress for your day clothing. This takes into consideration your personal work schedule and under the direction of your department head. Your department head will still be responsible for what your department's projection of what that is going to be a professional workplace. So basically, in general, again, this was just adopted and it's kind of a common sense. In general, if unsure whether an article of clothing is appropriate, and most likely it isn't. In other words, when in doubt, don't wear it. And that is the end of the review for our handbook. That was the Cliff Notes real fast version.
Commissioner Berg.
Mr. Chair, thank you. And thank you, Connie. This has been quite a day for you, but quite a time and input that you've had to work on to make all these changes. I appreciate that very much. I don't have an issue. The issues I had were already passed by the county board. So at this point, you need a motion to approve the handbook?
Yes, yes,
And
please.
I so move.
So we have a motion to approve the handbook. Do I hear a second?
I'll second that.
Commissioner Dwayne Anderson seconds. It was Commissioner Berg. Discussion. Commissioner Dale Anderson.
I guess as a new commissioner, I'm just really impressed with the work that's been put into this and the contracts. I mean, you guys spent tons of hours. I know you as commissioners have spent a ton of time on this, also working through this. I think it's a very interesting and very valuable piece for people to have this in front of them so that they know they can go back to this book as employees and say, hey, this is the rules. We can't do this or we can do this. It makes it very black and white, I hope. That this will help out, people to know what the actual rules are without just being kind of guessing what's going on. So thank you guys very much for the time.
Yeah, and just a shout out to Lisa and Karen, Lisa Weiss and Karen Dahlman worked extensively on this as well, as did Administrator Baker. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
And just a shout out to the remainder of the policy committee as well. That was,
Oh, yeah, you guys.
That was a lot of work. So, well, us and, but also.
Yes, right. Yes, the policy committee did spend a lot of time on this, and it was rewritten and enacted in 2020. So 4 years later, it was time to look at some of those, and just because there's been, legislative changes as well. So, thank you.
Any other comments or questions? I want to go back to Article 7. If I can find it.
We already passed this, but.
Article 7?
Or Roman numeral 7, you mean, or?
Roman numeral 7, yeah.
What page number?
Okay.
So, page 7.
Yep.
Okay.
So it's the county's policy to hire the most qualified individual for any openings. All appointments shall be made on the non-discriminatory basis and determined by ability. New positions or vacancies shall be open to all persons who meet the standards adopted at the sole discretion. It used to be the county board, now it would be the administrator. Can you explain that a little bit?
Sure. Basically, it's past practice. I mean, we've not, and thank you very much for my 9 years of being here at the county and not having to come to the board with every, with every prospective candidate for approval to hire. And so this is what it says, is that the county board would be able to, or would be inclined, or would have to approve all hires and all candidates for those hires. And so this is at the discretion of the administrator. Again, I've had great latitude in working under, both the prior administrator and this administrator and prior and current boards in being able to recruit, retain, and select employees or candidates that would become good employees and would fit the skills and duties of the job. So I appreciate that, and this just reflects that.
So does that also include, like, department heads?
No, department heads would be, that would be a personnel policy or a personnel committee position that, we would look at. We did it with Caroline, if you recall,
But
with
it does say all.
the Health and Human Services.
It
Yeah,
does say all appointments.
yeah. So that probably would be a change that we would want to make then.
Yeah.
Because, department heads would be different.
And
And
the
they're
other
not
question, in that regard, so if County Attorney Baker has identified an assistant county attorney, they're not elected, they're our employees, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, so would he not have a say-so in the hiring of a new assistant county attorney?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, again, past practice, because again, you've given us the latitude to hire employees both as the human resources director and as department heads. And I think Shane can speak to this too, that we've had the latitude to be able to pick the candidates that we felt as both department heads, supervisors, the human resources director that would best fit that role that we are hiring for. And so, if it were to come down to a decision that had to be made by the county administrator, then that would be done. But again, generally speaking, past practice has been for most employment that the supervisor, the department head, and the human resources director have been part of that hiring and selection process.
Well, and I left out the human resource director, so I'd really be a lot more comfortable if that language was clarified in there so that, because as it reads now, it's all appointments, so carte blanche, that whether they're a department head or an assistant county attorney, and because I think it's important that the person who's going to be supervising them be in on those questions or on those hires.
Okay, so I will.
So the administrator doesn't sit in on any interviews unless maybe I choose to sit or the department head would ask me to sit in. That's been the past practice.
Correct.
That is the current practice. Unless it's a department head or a supervisor with conversations with the department head. I leave it up to the department head. I think the 9-10 months I've been here, we've never had any issues. Leave it up to the department head on who they choose. Typically, HR handles that and works with the supervisor and department head.
Right, but I just think it's a lot clearer if we know that the human resource person and the department heads are involved in those kind of decisions.
Okay.
And even the personnel committee when it comes to department heads.
Correct, yes. And I'll take a look at this language and,
So how do we approve this today? Just take that part out for further?
Well, we just approve it as is and come back with the suggested language perhaps at our next meeting.
that's actually a past practice too, because I look back on the last time that we approved the employee handbook, and I actually had presented it in November, and it was approved, and then I had came back with a language change in December for a change in it too. So if that's
Well, I think-
acceptable,
yeah.
we could do that.
As long as it's part of the motion, so we understand that we do come back to it.
Okay.
All right, I'm going to entertain a motion to accept the handbook with the,
We have the motion.
Yeah.
Oh, we
And
have the
we already
motion.
passed it too, right? We voted it, right?
No,
No.
Oh, okay.
didn't vote on it.
Okay, well, it's on record that we're going to
We
revisit.
got a motion in a
the-
second though. Okay.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right, you guys want to do report outs or you want to go do lunch?
Go to lunch.
I'm going to make the exception for Dwayne. He called
Okay,
me
sure.
earlier, Commissioner Dwayne Anderson called me earlier this week with a significant concern.
I just got a update with Central Minnesota Jobs and Training, and I'm just going to read what they sent me for kind of a statement. So the Joint Powers Board for the Central Minnesota Jobs and Training Services Career Force System has been meeting lately to address some administrative, personnel, and financial issues. And I anticipate we will have additional information soon to update the county boards of commissioners from the 11 Minnesota counties that make up this Joint Powers Board. And that's all we have right now, just kind of a heads up that something might be coming with Central Minnesota Jobs and Training, so.
All right, thank you. Anything else really important? If not,
That'd be really
if
important.
I'm not, we will adjourn the final board meeting of the Kennewick County Board of Commissioner and welcome, wish everybody happy holidays.
Good.